Hello and welcome back, guys. We're now starting a new story, Heartstring, by kittycat908. You can find author's profile link in the description. Let's begin chapter 1, Little Moments. You understand that if you want to be a hero, you cannot tell anyone about your quirk, my dear. A nod from the 4-year-old. His big green eyes sparkled in the fluorescent hospital room. All he knew was that he gets to be a hero, everything he had ever wanted, and the person sitting across from him could give that to him. His handler, she had called herself. The woman tucked a strand of green hair behind her ear. A kind smile sat on her face. What about Kachin? Izuku wanted so desperately to tell Kachin about his brand new super important quirk. It would have to wait. Not yet, my little hero, the woman laughed. She had a nice laugh. Izuku mimicked it, and found it to be as fun as it sounded. For now, it's a secret. Just you and me, yeah. Okay, Izuku grinned. And guess what, my little hero? What? You get to come home with me. No more foster homes for you. Really? Izuku gasped. A look came over the woman's face. Sad, and happy, and something else. Izuku gazed into her eyes, the ones that were so much like his own. You're adopting me. Yes, I am. The woman moved to sit on the hospital bed next to him. He launched himself into her arms. My name is Inko Midoriya, and you are my son. I'm Izuku Midoriya. Mama smiled as big as he did. He thought she was very pretty when she smiled. Her suit felt itchy against his face, but he didn't mind. He had a new mama and he gets to be a hero. This was the best day ever. Toga pulled at the straps of the red tank top she wore. The room was sweltering. Freaking Shigaraki. She would stab him if she could. Well, just a little, anyway. Twice nudged her and she stopped moving. The group they were meeting with had been haggling, and Toga could see their leader starting to look faint. I don't know about that, Shigaraki rasped. She didn't know how he did it. Shiggy wore a long-sleeve shirt and looked perfectly comfortable despite the heat, if a little sweaty. We can't go any lower, the man stuttered. Any lower, and we won't even be able to get the materials. A chill passed through Toga. An unnatural chill. She groaned inwardly as she tugged her sweater on. Whoever had this stupid quirk would be the death of her. The group of visitors looked at her like she was crazy. Shiggy sighed. We're done for the day. But, I said we're done, Shigaraki snapped. The rest of the league got up from where they had been sitting around the edges of the small room. They filed out into the barroom. It was still warm out here, but warm like a late summer's day instead of the sauna they had just been in. Once all the visitors left, the league collapsed in various chairs. Kurogiri brought cups of ice water around to each of them. Toga took off her sweater, poured a bit in her hand, and splashed her neck. This feels so good, she thought as she drew her cold fingers over her face. A chill passed over her again, but this time it was just the air conditioning. Man, why can't we just set up some sort of heat detector? Twice whined. Then in his more manic voice, I can't take the heat anymore. You know why, Compress glared. Even he had taken off his mask to try and cool down. Doesn't seem very fair. Dabi sipped his water. What kind of quirk doesn't show up on anything? If we knew the answer to that, we wouldn't have to hold meetings in a sauna, Shiggy growled. It seemed their boss didn't like it either. He was splayed out on the counter, hands in a pile next to him. If they hadn't been suffering from heatstroke, Toga was sure that Kurogiri would have portaled him away. I thought it was great, said Spinner. Several groans of frustration were directed at him. Toga threw a knife, although she was too tired to put any real effort into it. The blade bounced off and harmlessly landed on the floor. Hey! It's not my fault someone has a weird quirk. Izuku sat back. Speaking to ghosts wasn't hard, nor was seeing them. A few were quite gory looking, but almost 10 years at the commission had desensitized him to that type of thing. He sighed. There were a few ghosts that helped him constantly spy. They sought him out, as if they could sense him. Today's ghost spy had approached him several years ago. Over the years, Izuku had found out a lot about his quirk. He drew ghosts in. He could command them, to a certain extent. And they could not lie to him. And today's ghost was no exception. Although, Izuku was quite sure that Hana wouldn't have tried lying. It wouldn't have occurred to her. "I'm sorry, Zuku," she pouted. "They felt me. I accidentally walked through one of them." The girl. As she spoke, Izuku signed her words to the camera set up in the front of the room. When he was small, he had had to repeat everything for the commission, but that had been incredibly annoying and hard for Izuku to keep track of, so Mom had taught him sign language. They used to try to be present for the talks, but the ghosts tended to clam up around others, even if they couldn't be heard. Ghosts didn't seem to care about cameras, though. "You know, this keeps happening, Hana," Izuku said, not unkindly. Hana's lip quivered. "It's not your fault, but do you know why it keeps happening?" "No." "They sit around the entire room, though. And if anyone moves, they all leave. I can't listen in if they all leave. It's all right. Next time, try just peeking your head through. But that's so hard. I can't be in the same place as the wall the whole time. Okay. I won't make you. You've been a lot of help anyways. How did it go, my little hero?" Mom asked as he exited the room. She stood outside the entire time, as this had been a short session. "It was fine, Mom," he said, handing the SD card over, "but no new information. The League has figured out a way to know when a ghost is there. That's not good." They dropped the card off to their supervisor, then began their walk home. Hana trailed behind. "I don't think it'll be too much of a problem. I just need a taller ghost who's willing to stand halfway in a wall. Perhaps Agent Namura. Maybe." Mom looked at him, studied his face. After that went on a minute too long, Izuku gestured in a go-on way. "Are you all right?" she finally asked. "You look pale, and I don't like the look of the circles under your eyes." "I'm all right. Just adjusting to the new missions." The commission had recently begun using him for more involved missions. He had been assigned to help with some of Hawk's takedowns. Nothing too big, just backup for the pro while he took care of most things. Izuku had to admit, Hawks was actually a pretty cool guy, even in costume. Kigo actually visited their apartment every once in a while. It happened more when he was younger, and less so now. When he was a kid, Izuku liked to imagine that the feathered hero was his older brother. "Is everything at school all right?" Izuku nodded, but his gut tightened at the thought of school. The bullying was relentless, and it frustrated him to no end that he couldn't tell people about his quirk. Kachin had simultaneously gotten better and worse in recent years. Not much he could do about it, though, and there was no point in worrying his mother. Most commission handlers were cold, to say the least, but Inko had really stepped into the mother role. She had even gone so far as to fight the commission on the need for him to go to school. Yeah, Izuku was not going to tell her about the bullying. That was a sure way for the commission to take away something she had fought so hard for. Chapter 2, Little Zuku, Deku. Kachin shoved Izuku down. The pavement scraped across his face. Or, rather, his face scraped across it. Painful as always. He heard the cronies laughing. Izuku tuned them out, just going through the motions. Taunt, heckle, hit, laugh, explode, run. It was easy. Familiar. He could hear the words of his supervisor, fighting back jeopardizes the mission, and, your cover depends on your quirklessness. He groaned from where Kachin had left him on the pavement, a new burn on his arm. Izuku hobbled home, where his mother already had the first aid kit out. She gently took him by the hand. You can fight back, she whispered as she cleaned his wound. It would make sense. Just one good hit. I can explain it to the commission. I can't do that. Besides, it's Kachin, he whispered back. The setting sun filtered through their curtains, illuminating Mom's face. She looked older than he remembered. How long had it been since he had really noticed her? Wrinkles decorated her slim fingers. Creases sat around her eyes. A knock came from the door, and for a split second Izuku thought that maybe the bullies had followed him home. Mom gave him a concerned look. When she opened the door, there was no one there. She picked up a grocery bag. Burn medicine, she said. The corner of Izuku's mouth twitched. Had it been Kachin? Nobody else would have left it. He sighed. Mom wrapped an arm around his shoulders, bag still in hand. They stayed like that for a moment, until another knock came. That'll be Takami. Kigo. Izuku forgot all about the burn on his arm. He ran to the door, threw it open, and there stood Hawks in civilian clothes with a bag of food. Kigo. It's been so long, hey, little Zuku. Kigo laughed. He slung his empty arm over Izuku's shoulders. Your mom invited me over for dinner. Said you might like to have a friend over. Izuku knew he was grinning like an idiot. He did not care. Kigo was here for dinner. Best day ever. This was the 4th time this month, actually. He wondered about that. Maybe Kigo was in love with his mom. He hoped not. That would be extremely weird. He was like a cool older brother. Izuku dismissed his thought completely when his mother started fussing over Kigo the way she did when Izuku had a particularly bad day. Then he noticed the dark circles under the hero's eyes, the way he seemed to sag into the sofa, and how worn down he looked. His clothes looked dirty. Not the way hero costumes looked dirty after a battle, but the way Izuku's clothes looked dirty after he'd been wearing them for a few days. A ghost popped through the wall and leaned over the couch. Izuku recognized her. A tourist woman that Hawks had saved from a collapsed building, but died on the way to the hospital. He thinks her name was Liza. A rather sad look sat on her elegant face. He's been like this for the last 3 days, she said. Didn't have time for laundry before his mission, doesn't have the energy to do it now. Doesn't have the energy to do anything right now. He hasn't slept either. The boy nodded ever so slightly, so the pro wouldn't notice. Not that it mattered. Kigo seemed a million miles away. He stared blankly at the ceiling. It was a look that had sat on Izuku's face many times. The kind of look that you get when you fail miserably. Heroes often had that look in private, Izuku had noticed. Even the ever-cheerful Hawks. Carefully, but quickly, Izuku hatched a plan. He sat next to Kigo, sniffed the air as obviously as possible, then dramatically pulled his shirt over his nose while flopping onto the opposite side of the couch. Man, you need a shower, Izuku laughed. Really, Kigo didn't smell all that bad, but you could tell he'd just slapped on some cologne. Probably, Kigo replied. He didn't move, and neither did the blank expression. Izuku pursed his lips. Clearly, this wasn't going to be as easy as he had hoped. He grabbed Kigo's arm and pulled with all his might. Kigo floundered as he fell to the floor, nearly hitting the coffee table. Hey! You two be nice, Mom called from the kitchen. We are. Izuku joyfully exclaimed. You brat, said Kigo, but there was no malice behind it. He heaved himself up, and Izuku pulled him down the hallway. Okay, I know I don't smell as bad as you're making it out to be. I took a shower at the station, thank you very much. That was 3 days ago, it doesn't count. Kigo scowled, looking around the both of them, as if he could see the ghosts like Izuku could. Liza stood right in front of him and doubled over with laughter. Tell him I think it's cute when he tries to see us. He looks just like my little brother when I told him the air was made of fairies. I'd rather not, Izuku muttered. Rather not what? Asked Kigo. His eyes narrowed. Tell him. Tell him. Izuku tried to tune out Liza's laughter as he answered. I'd rather not tell you that you remind Liza of her little brother trying to find fairies in the air. And that she's laughing her butt off, he added. Kigo scowled, eyes still roaming. Izuku pointed to where Liza now sat on the floor, wiping tears from her eyes. Kigo leveled his best glare at her. How about you keep my business to yourself? I don't need a kid telling me to take a shower. Yes, you do, Liza laughed, moving to sling an arm around Izuku. Yes, you do, Izuku repeated. Kigo gave him a look, and he held his hands up defensively. Her words, not mine. Although, I'm inclined to agree. You're ganging up on me. Kigo pointed sternly at where Liza had been. Izuku moved his hand so he would actually be pointing at her. Thanks. And you, Miss Ghost, had better stay out of the bathroom while I'm in there. No promises, she grinned. Nothing I haven't seen before. Izuku shot an alarmed look at her. What? What did she say? Izuku looked from the ghost to the hero and back. Liza rolled her eyes. It was an accident. I didn't know he was showering. Actually, at the time, I didn't know that room was the bathroom, so when I walked through the wall, please don't finish that story, he groaned. What story? A note of panic hit Kigo's voice. Nothing, Izuku said quickly. It's fine, she's just being weird. I am not weird, Liza scoffed as he ushered Kigo into the bathroom. She promises to stay out. Good. Kigo closed the door, and a moment later Izuku heard the shower turn on. Liza glanced between him and the door. Don't even think about it, he muttered. Liza huffed and sat with her back against the door, arms folded. I don't take orders from little boys, she said. Izuku said nothing back. He was just glad she wasn't purposely being a pervert. Some ghosts lost all sense of boundaries after death. Izuku grabbed some spare clothes out of the hall closet and set them outside the door. They always had spares. It had only happened a few times over the years, but you never knew when an agent would show up needing help. Or clothes. Kigo, he said through the door, there's clothes for you in the hallway. He thought he heard a soft okay, so he let him be. Whatever Kigo's mission was the other day, it must have been bad. Izuku wandered over to help his mom with the cooking. Mom smiled and moved so he could start chopping onions while she brought a pot to boil. How is he? Mom asked. I'm not sure, Izuku answered honestly. He looks like he's having an empty day. Or maybe days. An empty day is what Mom called the days where you couldn't feel much of anything, and could do even less. Poor Takami, his mom said. I'm sure he'll feel better after a shower, but he has so many empty days, and I don't think the commission cares. Hey, said a voice from behind him. Izuku turned to find Liza with her arms held close to her chest. It was something she seemed to do when she was upset. He wondered what was wrong, but didn't ask. Izuku gave her a sad smile. Mom noticed. Is someone here? Liza. His mom waited, and Izuku sheepishly realized he hadn't introduced them. She's an American tourist that Hawks saved. Ah. Has she been here before? No. But she's been at every mission I've done with him. Ichem. Well, Mom asked with her eyes where the ghost was. Izuku pointed. It's very nice to meet you. You're welcome here any time, but I ask you to leave Izuku alone while he sleeps, and stay out of the bathroom. All the other ghost rules are posted on the ceiling above the fridge. I apologize for the inconvenience, but less living people ask questions that way. If you don't follow the rules, Izuku can command you to leave. I know he doesn't like doing that, so please read and follow the rules. Will do, Liza mock saluted, but without her usual chipperness. She says she will. Wonderful. Tell her I like her hair. Izuku repeated her, and Liza seemed happier. Thank you, Mom blushed. I just got it cut last week. When Izuku got tired of relaying messages, he showed Liza the dry erase board on the fridge and charged her enough to use it. Ghosts could write without extra power, but it was a very slow process. Charging a hand took less energy than making them solid did, and Izuku had plenty of energy at the moment. He heard the bathroom door open and close. Kigo must have finished his shower. Izuku went to ask if he wanted him to toss his clothes in the laundry. A sound stopped him before he could knock. Gasping, shuddery breaths. It probably wasn't the most polite thing to do, but Izuku eased the door open. Kigo. The lights were off, despite the sun having just gone down. The little frosted window set near the top of the wall let in just enough of the street light to see Kigo sitting on the floor, seemingly frozen at Izuku's intrusion. His wings limply laid to the sides. Tears tracked his face. One tear dripped from his chin onto the pajama pants Izuku had picked out. His knees were clutched to his chest, and his expression was one that Izuku hadn't seen before. He didn't like it. It was like Kigo was a kid caught doing something he shouldn't. Are you okay? Izuku asked softly. This must have been what had Liza so upset. I'm fine, the hero breathed. He frantically wiped the tears from his eyes. Just fine. I just had a hard day. Sometimes you just need some alone time. Izuku thought for a moment, then sat next to the man, careful not to sit on top of any feathers. There was just enough space to fit both of their backs against the cupboard under the sink. When he was a kid, there had been times when his mom had been upset. Few things seemed to help, but there was one thing that had mostly worked. Izuku laid his head on Kigo's shoulder. On his friend's shoulder. A vague memory stirred, and his brain seemed to tell him he'd done this before, but he wasn't sure when. It's okay to cry, said Izuku. You don't have to hide it. Not here, anyway. The commission can't see you here. The commission can see me everywhere, Kigo miserably whispered. I can't, I don't get a break. Do they have you microchipped or something? Give you bionic eyes so they can see what you see. Izuku wouldn't be surprised, but he hoped it wasn't true. No. Kigo's voice was raspy from crying. But they definitely have my home bugged. Probably bugged yours, too. They don't see everything. They can't. But, it's just a bit much sometimes. You get it, don't you? A bit, Izuku admitted. But you really are okay to cry here. The commission really can't see you. You don't know that, Kigo looked away. I thought I knew that, but I learned the hard way. Don't learn the hard way. I do know that, actually. Izuku shifted, and pushed his way under Kigo's arm until he was nestled into the man's side. It was awkward, but Izuku remembered how much better his mom felt when he did that as a little kid. She had always said that a hug from Izuku was good for the soul. There's almost always at least 2 ghosts around here, which interferes with recording technology pretty badly. It literally corrupts recordings. Even one ghost can do that, but they'd have to stick their hand through whatever is recording. TVs are usually fine, and so are phones, as long as the microphone and camera aren't being used. And if that isn't enough to put your mind at ease, I have Agent Namura sweep the apartment twice a week. He's really good at being a ghost. He can feel the smallest disturbance, even if it's a quirk. His last sweep was this morning. Kigo's look of disbelief was enough to make Izuku's spirit soar. This is new. Last time I was here, we really can't be heard. Or seen. Not unless I tell all the ghosts to leave. Liza is the only human ghost here right now, but there are a few cat ghosts and a dog that stick around pretty much no matter what. I haven't seen them today, but I can feel them. 8 or 9 of them have been dormant in the walls for a long time. I think they know it makes me feel safe. Neither of them says anything for a long while, and Izuku thinks that maybe Kigo drifted off to sleep. That's what usually happened to him after he'd had a good cry. Izuku felt something wet on his head, and he looked up. Kigo was crying again, silently. The hero pulled Izuku closer, as if the boy were the only lifeline he had in an ocean of misery. Izuku peeked out of Kigo's hug when he heard Liza kneel down next to them. I told your mom I would check on you. You know, my brother held him like that, she said, when I died. Hawks flew him to the hospital after he finished saving everyone, but it was too late. I was already gone. Liam's 10 years younger than me. Between you and me, he was almost definitely an Goop's baby. Izuku didn't know what an Goop's baby was, but he could guess. Liam had just turned 11, and my parents paid for a trip for the both of us to go wherever we wanted. All Might is his favorite hero, well, aside from Stars and Stripes, so we came to Japan. 2 days later, I was gone, and he was alone. Hawks, he stayed with him. Until my parents came. Held him almost the entire time. It's about time somebody returned the favor. Izuku cried now, too. Never in his life had he felt more upset for a person than he did for Kigo right now. He knew Kigo was a commission kid, like he was, but he was also a hero. A hero, with his own agency, who took the time to wait with a child for their parents. A hero who couldn't even truly rest in his own home. It made Izuku angry, and he held on all the tighter. Izuku didn't know how long they sat there, but it was a while. Liza disappeared, presumably to tell Mom what was going on. Kigo's tears never stopped. One tear after another fell onto Izuku's green curls, and with each one, Izuku hugged tighter. He almost worried about hurting the man, but then he figured Kigo would tell him to let go if he hugged too tight. This was the worst part about having agents stop at the apartment. They were always so broken, and Izuku could only fix so much. You know something, don't you? Kigo asked after calming down. Izuku pulled away, sitting once again against the cupboard. What do you mean? The ghosts. One of them told you something, didn't they? That's why you came in. Surprisingly enough, no. I was just coming to ask if you wanted to throw your clothes in the wash, Izuku said. I thought I was being quiet, said Kigo with half a smile. He seemed exhausted, but not empty like he had been before. It probably wouldn't have mattered if you were quiet or not. I'm nosy, Izuku joked. It comes with being the ghost talker. Besides, my mom says my hugs are good for the soul, and I always seem to be in the right place at the right time. Well, I won't argue with her on that. You're a nice kid. I don't think I've ever met a 13-year-old who would take the time out of his day to comfort an old guy like me. Oh, he's always been like that. They jumped at the sudden appearance of Izuku's mom in the doorway. Izuku blushed at her comment. There was one agent that stopped by when he was 5 that was gravely injured and needed to be looked after. She had terrible nightmares, the poor thing. I think she was younger than you at the time. Izuku slept on the couch right next to her the entire time she was here. How sweet, Kigo said, leveling an amused look at Izuku. Izuku blushed harder. But I can't imagine that's always the safest thing, especially with a kid. It's not, Mom replied. I try to limit his interactions with agents, and I've never left him alone with anyone. We had 2 separate incidents early on. What incidents? Kigo asked, an edge to his voice, and Izuku knew instinctively that Hawks wanted to pay someone a visit. There was an older agent, Izuku explained, that visited when I was 4, right after Mom adopted me. And then he kept coming around. It started to get really weird, but Mom ran him off. Haven't seen him since. It was a good thing I never let that man be alone with him, Mom said. I dread to think what would have happened if I hadn't. What about the second incident? I actually don't remember that one, said Izuku. An agent tried to kidnap him. They had a drag quirk, and I caught him trying to take him from the playground at school. I went to pick him up early that day, and I'm so glad I did. Mom's fingers carted through his hair, and Izuku leaned into the feeling. Little Katsuki was pounding on the man's legs with all the little explosions he could muster. Did no teachers see him being taken? Oh, they don't really care about me, Izuku said. Mom sighed, that heavy kind of sigh that Izuku hates. I'm quirkless, after all. That's not right, Kigo muttered. It's not, Mom replied, but if we called them out, it would jeopardize our place, and the commission can't afford that. What I wouldn't give to take the entire commission down and build something else. Kigo's eyes widened, apparently still not used to the idea that the commission couldn't hear them. Mom stayed silent for a moment. Her eyes focused on something far away. Kigo shook his head, then a rather uncomfortable look came over his face. What about me? He asked. I was alone with Izuku just now. What about it? Izuku and his mom asked in unison. Kigo looked bewildered. I'm an agent, more or less. I don't live here. Why would you let him be alone with me? This time it was Izuku's turn to look bewildered. He wasn't sure how to finish his statement. You're the only exception, Mom supplied. I raised Izuku, and practically raised you as well. You were barely a teenager, but teenagers are still kids. Remember when you used to come by? It was almost every day at first, and you were as good of a big brother as I could have hoped for Izuku. You really should come over more often. I love having you around. I really mean that much to the both of you. You trust me that much? Yes, mother and son said in unison. Mom laughed and clapped her hands together. Now, enough of the heavy topics. Let's go eat. Chapter 3, Vespyro's Izuku didn't see Hawks for a while after that. It wasn't the first time Kigo had gone no contact, and it probably wouldn't be the last, but Izuku was worried. He hadn't seen Liza either, until the next week. She appeared suddenly in the middle of the night. The only reason Izuku happened to catch her was because he had woken up from a dream to scribble down a question about All Might's quirk. Hi, Izuku, Liza said. She phased through Izuku's desk and his chair didn't move when she Saturday, how's it hanging? Everything's fine, he replied, still rubbing the sleep from his eyes. Liza wasn't frantic, so he knew he had a moment to wake up. He glanced down at the question he had hastily scribbled in his bedside notebook. In addition to being almost illegible, the question made no sense. Was that word shape-shifting? It must have been a weird dream that spawned that question. Izuku shook his head, then turned to address the ghost in the room. Is Hawks all right? Oh, he's fine. Mostly. He was a lot better after he stayed the night here. The commission sent him out again, though. They better be careful, Izuku commented. Liza looked confused, so he elaborated. If they keep a popular hero away for too long, the public will get upset. I suppose so. And I know I'm not supposed to bother you while you're sleeping, but I was going to wait until you woke up. I just wanted to give you an update. Didn't want you and your mom to worry too much. Thanks. And don't worry about it. I woke up by myself anyway. They sat silently until Liza excused herself to go keep an eye on Hawks. Feeling less worried about his pseudo-brother, Izuku tried to fall asleep again. Before he could drift off, Agent Namura passed through the wall. Izuku sighed inwardly, so as not to offend the ghost. Just his luck. Agent Namura had some sort of intel that couldn't wait till morning. What is it? Izuku asked, already resigned to an early morning meeting at the commission. His clock read 4, is the League doing another deal? No, actually, Namura said. It was then that Izuku noticed the relaxed tension surrounding the dead agent. Usually, the ghost seemed keyed up, like all the pressure in the world sat on his shoulders. Now, he almost seemed relaxed. Namura sagged into Izuku's desk chair. To Izuku's utter shock, Namura smiled. It wasn't that Namura never smiled, but the ghost never smiled like this. It was odd, like he was actually happy. No, happy was the wrong word. Relieved, more like. Namura was relieved about something. I came to give you a heads up, the ghost continued. The commission is sending you on a mission. Then why are you smiling? You hate it when the commission does that. I do, usually. Namura went to fiddle with a pen Izuku had left out, but his hand phased through it. He clasped his hands instead. You'll be going with a friend of mine. Someone I trust with my life. Or, well, trusted. Can't really trust him with my life right now, can I? Izuku humored him with a laugh. He still wasn't fully awake. Anyway, he'll be here at 5, MDM president will be here as well. She wanted to catch you off guard, but I didn't stick around to find out why. It's because she doesn't want him getting cocky, said a girl's voice from behind him. Izuku would have jumped, but the number of times Hana had crawled through his wall to curl up on his bed defied numbers. The little girl may have been born almost 10 years before him, but she acted the age she looked. She held out her hands, and Izuku charged her so she could sit in his lap with the blanket over her legs. Hana had sought him out when he was little, and they had been fast friends. Now, she was more like his little sister. The league is sleeping and I was bored. Well, I guess we'll just sit around and wait. There's only another 45 minutes until they get here. I would say you should rest, but I doubt it would help, Namura said. He muttered something under his breath about how he maybe should have waited. I was already awake, Izuku replied. Why don't you tell me about your friend? Is he a pro hero too or just an agent like you? He's a pro. An underground hero named Eraserhead. I've heard other agents talk about him. Is he as scary as they make him out to be? They say he's like death incarnate. Namura chuckled. Death warmed over, more like. I swear, the man only ingests coffee and jelly pouches. He's a good man, though. And a good teacher. He teaches at UA. You could learn a thing or two from him. Izuku's pulse raced. A UA teacher. He was going to go on a mission with a UA teacher. So. Freaking. Cool. What's his quirk? Is it something that helps him camouflage? Or does he have to use his own skills to blend in? Is he nice? Does he do undercover missions often? How long? Easy, there, Midoriya. Slow down. Namura held his hands up. Take it one question at a time. Okay. Izuku took a breath. What's his quirk? Erasure. He can erase the quirk of someone he looks at. Whoa. That probably doesn't work on mutations, though, but it could possibly affect. Izuku's words dissolved into barely distinguishable mutters about the logistics of such a quirk. Namura patiently waited until he was done. Okay, second question, is he nice? Will I have to be on my best behavior or? Namura drew a breath through his teeth. It's kind of hard to say. How do I put this? Eraser is every bit as scary as the other agents make him out to be, but only if you've earned his wrath. I'd say his main character trait would be grumpy. But not all the time. I saw him laugh once. Don't tell anyone that, though, or he might kill me again. This is a nice little place. Both the boy and the ghosts in his room jumped. Someone was outside Izuku's bedroom door. His mind raced. No footsteps heard and a very slight glow coming through the crack under the door. Izuku let out a relieved breath. Just a ghost, who peeked his head through the wall. The ghost was a boy. Maybe a few years older than Izuku, with light, cloudy blue hair. His eyes met Izuku's and he froze. So, hi, the ghost boy said. You must be the ghosty guy. Which means you can see me. Weird. Who are these two? As if you don't know who I am, Namura said tiredly. He leaned back, pinching the bridge of his nose. He explained to Izuku that they both knew Eraserhead. And I'm getting tired of you pretending you don't know me, Shirakumo. Sorry, old man, I didn't recognize you. You're older than me, Namura growled, but there was no heat behind it. I am eternally youthful, so actually I am younger than you. That isn't how this works. You were 2 years older than me when you died. That makes you 28. False. I turned 29 last week. Happy belated birthday, Izuku said. Thanks, kid. The cloud-haired boy plastered the biggest smile on his face. The name's Shirakumo Oboro. You can call me Oboro if you want. Nice to meet you. I'm Izuku. The sound of frantic shuffling filtered through the closed door, and a moment later Mom eased it open. Izuku, sweetheart, you need to get up, and fast. MDM President's coming, and she has something for you to owe. Mom flipped on the lights and did a double take. You're already awake. Why weren't you sleeping? Agent Namura came to wake me up. MDM President has a mission for me, and she's bringing a pro named Eraserhead. Eraserhead. Really? Oh, he's such a lovely young man. I worked with him once, when he was fresh out of school. It's truly amazing how far he's come. You knew him? Izuku, Oboro, and Namura asked in unison, although Mom only heard Izuku. Mom nodded and sighed. I wish I would have had you back then. It would have made it easier to get him to open up. Izuku turned to Oboro. My mom is the one that the commission used to send with operatives that needed to have an extra eye on them. Not because they didn't follow the rules, but because the commission wasn't sure what kind of headspace they were in. Having unstable, uncontrollable agents means having an unstable, uncontrollable agency. And the commission likes control. Man, that must have been when Zashi fought that big bad, Oboro murmured. I stayed with him in the hospital that whole week. Who are you talking to, sweetheart? Oh, right, sorry, Mom. Roll call. Izuku pointed. There's a ghost named Oboro right there. Namura is in the chair, and Hana is in my lap. All right, well, Hana, get off Izuku's lap so he can get dressed. I was told full stealth suit. And Oboro, read the rules listed on top of the fridge. They apply to all ghosts. Izuku, hurry and change, they'll be here soon. Okay. The ghosts left to give him some privacy, and he pulled on the dark blue stealth suit he had left in the pile of unfolded laundry he had shoved into the corner of his bed. He had really meant to put his clothes away earlier that day. Instead, he had worked until 10, then slept on top of the clean clothes. He was also fairly sure his mom had done the same thing. Izuku idly wondered if the commission would be willing to spare a crime scene cleaner to help out. Probably not. At 5:15 on the dot, MDM President knocked. Barely waiting for Mom to open the door, MDM President barged in, her heels click-clacking on the hardwood. She glanced at the apartment disdainfully, glaring at the photos on the walls. Oboro reclined on the couch, Namura stood glaring at the president, and Hana sat on Izuku's helmet, which was on the coffee table. He grabbed his helmet and shoved it on his head. The tinted visor made it so no one could see his face. The less MDM President saw, the better. Izuku wondered where Eraserhead was as he tightened his gloves. Good to know you can get ready in a hurry, she said, as calm as ever. Of course, Izuku replied. The smell of breakfast filtered into the helmet. His stomach didn't growl, but it came close. Mom excused herself, but he knew she would be watching from the kitchen. He charged Hana's hand, just in case he needed her to write a message. I have a task for you. Izuku nodded. There are villains who stole essential information from us, and I need you to help someone get it back. Is that someone here, or? Izuku had to stop himself from saying Eraserhead's name. MDM President did not appreciate an agent knowing more than they should. He'll be along shortly. I am here to set some ground rules. 1. Do not take off your helmet in front of him. 2. Do not act like a child. Your behavior must be that of a professional. 3. Do not give him any personal information. That includes your age, name, or grade. He will address you merely as Vispiros. What's the meaning behind it? Izuku couldn't help but ask. He couldn't keep the excitement out of his voice, either. I knew you'd ask, MDM President said. Izuku was surprised that she would know that. It's a combination of Latin and Greek. It means you can see spirits, more or less. Izuku had to suppress an excited shiver. Until now, he had been referred to as Ghost Talker, and even then, it was only by a very small number of agents that were aware of his quirk. Even the agents that the commission sent to his mom for help didn't know about it. Kigo didn't count. If Izuku had to guess, it was probably one of the best-kept secrets in an agency full of secrets. And now he has a hero name that proclaims it for everyone to hear. You know, Loud Cloud is great, said Oboro from the couch, but that's a wicked cool name. Without moving his head, Izuku focused his eyes on Namura, who seemed angrier and angrier the more MDM President talked. She's really going to try to trick Eraser into not knowing he's working with a kid. Really? I don't believe this. And then she goes and gives you something you've always wanted as a way to distract from the fact that Eraser won't know you're a kid. Relax, old timer, Oboro said, Sho will figure it out the second Izuku opens his mouth. He's got a pretty kiddie voice. Ooh, Izuku wanted to react to that. He did not have a kiddie voice. Sure, it wasn't exactly the manliest voice, but it wasn't a little kid voice either. What's wrong? MDM President looked around the room slowly. Is there a spirit here? Yes. Then Izuku lied through his teeth, it's just Hana. She came to say that the League is sleeping now and that they haven't done anything yet, but that there might be something happening tomorrow. Tell her to go back and keep an eye on them. It wouldn't do to miss something. Hana stuck her tongue out. She heard you. Very well. The last thing I need to tell you is to use the voice changer in your helmet. I don't care what you make your voice sound like, just change it. Namura's eyes bulged. Midoriya, kiddo, I am begging you, use a deep voice while she's here and SWCH to a kid voice with Eraserhead. Please don't let him think you're an adult. Izuku nodded, more to Namura than MDM President. Why Namura was so concerned about it, he didn't know, but he trusted the ghost. I'll do my best in this assignment. Izuku's voice came out of the helmet with a deep timbre. Thank you for the opportunity. MDM President opened the door then, and in came Eraserhead. He didn't know why, but Eraserhead's appearance took him a little off guard. It wasn't often someone showed up without him knowing exactly when they did. Izuku made a mental note to look into that. Izuku looked long and hard at the pro-hero. He didn't look like death incarnate to him, but maybe he would have to a villain. His eyes were hidden behind his long black hair and yellow goggles. The utility belt around the man's waist looked plain, but Izuku was sure there were plenty of surprises in it. His boots were remarkably similar to the ones Izuku wore. Eraserhead's had tiny black charms on the laces though. Izuku almost laughed, but he caught himself just in time. Remember, Eraserhead, no personal questions to the operative. Vispiros, Eraserhead already knows who you are and what you can do. You will accompany and assist him however he sees fit. And with that, MDM President left. Izuku jerked his head toward the door. On it, Namura said. He disappeared. So, you're Vispiros. Izuku couldn't see his eyes, but he could feel the man's gaze. Okay, Eraserhead was definitely more intimidating than Izuku had first thought. He turned away, and invited the pro to join him in the small living room. Izuku forced himself to sit through Oboro, who yelped and moved out of the way. Not cool, dude. Sorry, Izuku said instinctively, and he almost jumped out of his skin when his voice came out so deep. "Sorry for what?" Eraserhead asked, and Izuku just knew the man was raising one eyebrow at him. That was, Izuku switched the voice changer to a child's voice. "I mean sorry for the deep voice thing." Then the 13-year-old groaned. He sounded like a little girl now. "Oh, come on. Trouble with your tech?" Eraserhead asked. "Yeah. Well, no. It's, ugh. Just wait a minute and I'll explain, okay?" Eraserhead leaned back in the armchair. "We're in no rush. Despite the early start, we don't need to get going for another hour, at least." "Oh my Cloud, I think he's already figured out you're a kid." Oboro cackled. "That's gotta be some kind of record. Take off your helmet, let's see if he really knows or if he just senses it." "Izuku, dear, breakfast is almost ready. And Eraser, it's so nice to see you again after so long." Mom wiped her hands on a towel as Eraserhead moved to shake her hand. "Oh, none of that, now. Hugs only." "I don't think that's—" Eraserhead cut himself off when Mom wrapped her arms around him. And then Izuku saw something impossible. This big, dark, 6 feet of man melted. Not literally, but Izuku swore all the tension left the man for a few seconds. It returned as soon as the embrace ended. There's nothing like a hug from your big sister. He's your brother." Izuku exclaimed. He winced at the voice coming from his helmet. Oboro dissolved into a fit of giggles. "No." Eraserhead pulled his goggles off and let them hang around his neck. His glare sent chills down Izuku's spine. "And if you breathe a word of this to anyone, he won't," Mom interrupted. She ushered them both into the kitchen. "Just like you won't breathe a word about me using his name. And don't you give me that look, Izuku. I heard the president, and I'll happily disobey her in my own home." Izuku didn't know how she knew what look he had, but credit where credit was due. Eraserhead, for his part, looked skeptically between them, like he was dissecting them, piece by piece. Izuku wondered what the pro saw. Namura reappeared then. "I've checked everything, there aren't any new bugs and MDM president is gone." She got in her car and drove away. Finally. To the mild surprise of everyone, Izuku pulled his helmet off and chowed down on his breakfast. His mom rolled her eyes. Eraserhead sported a carefully crafted poker face. "You're a kid." "I'm a teenager." "A kid," Eraserhead repeated. He sunk into a dining chair, one hand on his face. "They think a kid is going to help me, I am going to help you," Izuku said around the food in his mouth. "I've been assigned to, anyway." "You realize," Eraserhead said after a long sigh, "that since you're a commission kid, they probably have bugs all over the place, right?" Izuku shared a look with his mom and the ghosts. That look did not go unnoticed. Eraserhead narrowed his eyes once again. It shouldn't have been possible, but his eyes narrowed even further when Izuku dug a jelly pouch out of the cupboard. "Here. You don't strike me as much of a breakfast person." "I'm not." Chapter 4, Boom. Breakfast ended, and Shoyuta led the way down the street. Inko had insisted on him eating a full meal, which was sitting rather heavily in his stomach. A full stomach would be nice an hour or two from now, but he hated the sensation this early in the morning. Inko had also made him promise to keep Izuku safe. Vispiros, he mentally chided himself. It would be all he needed to slip up in the presence of any commission agents. Not that there were any. The sun wasn't even up yet. Shoyuta glowered in the chilly early morning. "So, how much do you know about me?" Izuku, "No," Vispiros, asked. Shoyuta shrugged, tangling his fingers deeper within his scarf. They were just passing into an abandoned part of the city, so Shoyuta walked closer to the kid. "Enough. Don't share anything you were told not to. My mom already shared most of it. And I already took my helmet off, which I wasn't supposed to do." I mean, what are they going to do, incarcerate a kid? They could. Would, even. Nah. I'm too useful, and if they did that I wouldn't help them. And wasn't that just the most concerning sentence he'd ever heard? The kid fell silent for a while. Something about Izu, Vispiros, reminded him of his students. Maybe he could pull some strings and get him enrolled at U. Shoyuta only knew of one other commission kid, Hawks, but he had seen what happened to pros and agents alike. Time and time again, he had seen people be broken by the utter disregard shown towards them. He didn't want that to happen to this bright, sunshiny kid. This kid, who suddenly burst into laughter. Ha 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 ha. Oh, that is too good. What? Shuta's question came out more like a statement. He gave the boy his best teacher glare. Sorry, Izuku, Vispiros, screw it, Izuku, said. I just, thought of something funny. As convincing as that was, Shoyuta was not amused. I'm not going to let you work with me if you lie to me. Sorry, Izuku said again, immediately more sober. It's just, well, how much were you actually told about me? All I know is that you have some way of spying without being detected. Wow, they really didn't tell you anything, did they, Shoyuta? Shoyuta immediately jumped into a defensive stance. How could the kid know his name? Had he hacked a database? Or was his quirk a psychic one? Izuku giggled, as if he hadn't just used Shuta's name. Izuku held up his hands. Relax, Eraserhead. I just wanted to see what you'd do. Izuku turned his head to the side and whispered, will you shut up, please? You're not helping. Shuta's eyes snapped to where the boy was looking. There wasn't anything there. Maybe he had a radio in his helmet. But that wouldn't explain why he turned his head. Izuku heaved a sigh. Eraserhead, I have two things that I have been requested to tell you. The first is that my quirk lets me see ghosts. Agent Namura says hi. Agent Namura. That's a name Shoyuta hadn't heard in years. The man had gone missing, and Shoyuta had never been able to find any trace of him. They had been friends, or, at the very least, good acquaintances. How would Izuku know about him? Okay, never mind, 3 things. Second thing, Agent Namura wants you to know that he appreciated your friendship and that he's glad I'm with you because I deserve a good teacher. He also says he's very sorry for disappearing and that the commission covered it up. I figured. He's also very glad that you're with me because, I am not saying that. Izuku paused, as if listening to someone else. Okay, fine. I'll tell him. But only because you're the only one who will do weekly bug checks for me, they are not daily. Quit acting like it's the hardest thing in the world. We both know you do it even if I didn't ask, you're right. I'm sorry, yes, I appreciate you. Kid. Shoyuta was beginning to feel like he was missing out on a lot. Izuku heaved a sigh and went on in a resigned voice. I have to tell you that Namura is glad that you're with me because you need therapy even if you won't admit it. And apparently, I am therapy incarnate. Shoyuta raised a brow. They continued walking. I have a therapist, kid. Most pros do. I'm not going to use you as a therapist. Noted and appreciated. Once again, Izuku looked off to the side for a long moment. Look, I'm not going to say everything, okay? I'm not a phone. If you want, after the mission is done, I'll charge your hand and you can write a letter. For now, just choose one thing. 1, alright, Eraserhead. Oboro would like to know if you still have the cat ears. Shoyuta felt like he'd been punched in the gut. Oboro. Oboro was here. Shuta's breathing quickened to the point of hyperventilation. There was no way, he needed to sit down. Now. He planted himself on a dilapidated brick wall and took several calming breaths. And then he took several more. Of all of the things to come out of this kid's mouth. Oboro. Shoyuta was almost embarrassed at how squeaky his voice sounded saying that name. Izuku put an awkward hand on his shoulder. Oboro wants you to know that he's proud of you, and he knows you missed him, but he's been with you all this time in spirit. Well, with you and someone named Zashi. He says he's really proud of you. So much for the kid not being a phone. Shoyuta put his face in his hands for a long time, willing the tears to go away. Oboro was proud of him. And suddenly, he was being hugged by the kid. When Izuku pulled away, Shoyuta actually felt a lot better. Almost unnaturally so. Sorry if that was too much. Oboro and Namura both said to give you a hug. I trust Namura, and I think Oboro must really like you, so I just did it. It's Shoyuta cleared his throat. He never showed his emotions like this, and he hated that he was showing anything to a kid. It wasn't the kid's responsibility to be like this. It's fine. I just needed a minute. It's not every day that your dead friends make contact with you. So you believe me. About my quirk. I've got no reason not to. Why? Well, some of the agents that have to work with me don't believe me even if I tell them. Usually I don't tell them at all. It's easier for everyone. What about school? Shoyuta asked, resuming their walk. I can't imagine it's easy with a quirk like yours. Oh, I'm diagnosed quirkless. That made Shoyuta stop in his tracks. What in the world was the commission thinking? He wondered if Izuku knew about the statistics for quirkless people, about the death rates. Shoyuta knew. He also knew how cruel kids could be. And then he found himself wondering, how was Izuku so seemingly happy? Maybe it was for show, and he was secretly depressed. Except, the hug. When Izuku had hugged him, he had sensed that the kid was perfectly fine, and that in turn had made him perfectly fine. We're going to circle back to that. Shoyuta checked his phone. The meeting he needed intel on wouldn't start for another 30 minutes. In the meantime, I want to know what your quirk does with living people. What do you mean? Izuku pet his head to the side. When you use it on living people, what does it do? Honestly, I've never actually tried. It wasn't until this morning that I realized I could sense people. Or in your case, not sense them. I've never met someone who just wasn't there. Ghosts have a strong presence, but living people still have some, I guess. I just thought, well, I never thought to question it. It's like the world being blurry for your whole life and then getting glasses. The blurriness is normal, until someone shows you it's not. Okay. Shoyuta was definitely getting this kid enrolled at UA. Clearly, the commission was dropping the ball with him. I want to talk to you about that again later. Preferably with a colleague of mine. Shoyuta did not mention that the colleague was actually his boss. Why? Izuku had his head ped to the side again. Because I think he'd be interested, and he could help you learn more about your quirk. Shoyuta paused to let that sink in, then changed the subject before the kid could ask more. Now, back to the quirkless thing. Why would you be diagnosed? It's my cover, replied Izuku, absent-mindedly kicking a stray pebble. The kid didn't seem all that concerned, as if that was the most normal thing in the world. Which it was not. And how has that been? Not great, usually. People don't like me much. The pro-hero found that extremely hard to believe. In all of 2 hours, this kid had gotten closer to Shoyuta actually liking him than his entire class had this year. Once again, he found himself wondering if it was related to Izuku's quirk. You have a phone, kid? Yeah. Why? Is it monitored? Almost definitely. But I have this. Izuku showed Shoyuta a smartwatch on his wrist. It's a super old vintage model. Mom got it for me when I started going on missions. It doesn't have GPS or a microphone, so the commission can't use it against me. Yet another concerning statement, delivered as if it didn't matter. Can it send and receive messages? Yeah. Mom uses it just to check on me. I can actually get calls on it, but I need earbuds for that. Start a new message. Okay. To who? Izuku winced, and looked past Shoyuta. Will you stop cackling? We are on a mission, it is not. He turned his attention back to Shoyuta. Can you please tell Oboro that this is not a mission to adopt a child? Oh, great, he's laughing harder now. Shoyuta pinched the bridge of his nose. And, feeling incredibly silly, he spoke to thin air. Oboro, I miss you, but can you please not distract Vispiros? He says sorry and you're avoiding the question. I'm not adopting anyone, thanks. Now, Vispiros, I want you to put a number in your watch. Shoyuta listed his personal phone number. Call or message it whenever you need. Even if it's something small. Are you serious? The excitement and surprise in Izuku's voice didn't escape Shuta's attention. Deadly. Was that a joke? He didn't answer. Soon enough, they came to the fence around the warehouse. Shoyuta held up a hand, and Izuku immediately fell silent. They hid in an abandoned building across the street, where the boys sent the ghosts in. And they waited. And waited. And waited. Are you sure they can't be captured? No one believes in ghosts, and even if they did, they can't see them. At most, they feel a chill in the air. The stupid league with their stupid hot rooms have been trying to counteract it. Izuku said the last thing in more of a mutter. Luckily, the boy's gaze was trained on the building, not on Shuta's shaking shoulders as the man stifled a laugh. I take it these hot rooms were incorporated in response to your prying. Yeah. Couldn't be anything else. Izuku sighed. That's what I get for using a 6-year-old in recon. It's not her fault though. She's just short and doesn't like going only halfway through a wall. What? Oh, one of my ghosts, Hannah, she's been my friend since I was a kid. I think if she was alive she would be closer to 20 or 30. I'm not super sure. All I know is that her brother is part of the league and she wants to help him. Not like help him as in help him be a villain or anything. She just wants him to be safe, and he isn't. She won't tell me who he is, though. Oh, here come Namura and Oboro. The boy frowned, and Shoyuta followed his gaze out of habit. Of course, there was nothing there, nothing he could see. What's wrong? They're running. As fast as they can, they're yelling but I can't hear them yet. A look of confusion grew on the kid's face. They're yelling Kami, something. Kami, Kaze. Immediately, Shoyuta effortlessly tossed Izuku over his shoulder and booked it towards the back door of the building. Just as he turned the door knob, a blast threw them into the wall. Shoyuta smelled smoke. He couldn't feel Izuku anymore. Ringing in his ears made it hard to hear. When he tried to move, he couldn't. A chunk of the ceiling had him pinned to the floor. Panic welled up in his chest, but he forced it down. He had to find the kid. He could still wiggle his toes, and aside from feeling bruised to the moon and back, he thought he was all right. Which meant all he needed to do was get out from under the ceiling. Gradually, he wriggled his way out using his capture scarf. By the time he was free, his hearing had returned. Kid. Shoyuta could barely see through the smoke and dust. Parts of the building were on fire. He absent-mindedly wound his scarf over his face as he searched for Izuku. Izuku, can you hear me? Where are you? A small noise, like a whimper, came from his right. Shoyuta followed the sound, where he found Izuku laid against the wall, not under any rubble, thankfully. And then Shoyuta saw the red staining Izuku's hands. Okay. Everything would be okay. He just had to get the kid out of this smoke and to a hospital. Everything's gonna be okay, kid, Shoyuta said as he got closer. He put his arms around the boy, but when he tried to lift him, his hands phased right through. Shoyuta tried again, with the same result. Izuku, what's going on? Izuku didn't respond, seemingly unconscious. Not knowing what else to do, Shoyuta kept talking while trying to lift the boy every so often. The 11th time was the charm. The pro hero got out as fast as he could, and in the alley behind the building he started with the first aid procedure that had been drilled into him so many years ago. When Izuku came to, it was to 3 very concerned faces. There was a crack in his visor as well. Ouch, he groaned. He felt like he'd been hit by a truck. Sitting up, he said, well, I guess I didn't get Izuku since you 3 are still here. What happened? Eraserhead and Oboro spoke at the same time. I'm so sorry, I should have stayed to keep watch over you too. There was an explosion. Are you all right? Izuku felt the crack on his visor, nodded, then winced. My head kinda hurts, and my arms. His arms were already covered in bandages, as well as his right hand. You scared me, Izuku. The boy startled at the emotion in the pro's voice. Eraserhead did not seem like the kind of person that would admit that kind of thing. Did you know you could turn intangible? I can't, can I? I almost didn't get you out. The building rumbled above them. Eraserhead grabbed Izuku and ran further away. Izuku would be embarrassed, but the roof collapsed inwards. A large chunk of the wall landed where they had been not 5 seconds ago. Suddenly the shoulder digging into his stomach wasn't so uncomfortable. When Eraserhead deemed that they were far enough away, he stopped, unceremoniously dropping Izuku. The teen staggered to his feet. Eraserhead leaned against a building, chest heaving. That may have been a bit of an overreaction on my part, the man admitted, but we should be safe. Rather safe than sorry, Izuku said. And I don't think it was an overreaction at all. Oboro chimed in with, he just carried you 10 blocks. It was an overreaction. 10 blocks? Izuku asked vacantly. It had not seemed that far. Eraserhead sat heavily next to him. Their backs leaned against a dilapidated building. A sense of déjà vu came over him as he remembered sitting with Kigo like this. Eraserhead wasn't having a breakdown, though, as far as he could tell. The man was just coming off of an adrenaline high. So, I was intangible, then. Yeah. Ha. Eraserhead looked at Izuku, barely turning his head. How much does the HPSC work with you on your quirk? I do recon with ghosts all the time. Although, I've started going on missions recently, mostly to clean up after Hawks bust somebody. It's kind of fun. The pro gives Izuku an indiscernible look before saying, they don't work with you at all, do they? You just work for them. Izuku had never heard it put that way, but he couldn't deny the man's words. He didn't like that. Instead of answering, he changed the subject. You never answered Oboro's question. We're a bit past that, don't you think? No, actually, said Oboro, now that you're both safe, he really needs to answer that. Oboro would like you to answer as well. Eraserhead glared into space. It was funny to Izuku that people acted like they could see ghosts like he could. One of these days, he would have to tell more people about his quirk and see if they acted the same way. Izuku gently pushed the pro's face so he could glare at Oboro properly. The ghost glared right back. Shoyuta, if you don't answer whether or not you still have the cat ears, I'll tell him about the 3C incident. The second one. Izuku repeated Oboro. Namura, who had been keeping watch, spared a curious glance at the other ghost and his old friend. Eraserhead glared more fiercely, but a very, very light blush tinted the man's cheeks. Yes, I still have them. What's the 3C incident? Izuku asked. And why are there 2? None of your business, kid. I'll tell you later, Oboro cackled. Sure. Now, Eraserhead groaned as he stood. Let's get you to a hospital. Chapter 5, Dadzawa, when his mother found out what had happened on their recon mission, she nearly lost her mind. And perhaps had a heart attack. She even gave Eraserhead an earful, which Izuku kept his helmet on for so he could smirk. He didn't think Eraserhead deserved it, but it was kind of funny seeing someone over 6 feet tall get lectured by someone who was barely over 5 feet. Eraserhead apparently had some sort of sixth sense, because he glared at the teen. "I can feel you smiling, Izuku. Stop it." Unfortunately for him, that comment brought him to Mom's attention. "And you, young man." Izuku winced, bracing himself for his own lecture. He glared back at Eraserhead, who was now sporting the same smirk that Izuku had had a moment ago. All things considered, getting lectured was not technically the worst thing to happen to the two of them in the last 24 hours. It was Izuku's least favorite part of it, though. He hated upsetting his mother. Just then, the door burst open. Mom and Eraserhead both jumped into defensive positions in front of Izuku. They didn't need to worry, though. "I have had it with the freaking commission." Hawks stomped into the room, a suitcase under each arm. "They raised me to be their perfect little soldier, which I was happy to do at first, and this is the thanks I get. First, they bug my friggin' house, but no surprise there, honestly. And then. They decide that apparently they don't trust me enough to have my own place anymore, so they send another agent to literally watch me like I'm 5 years old. They tried following me into the friggin' bathroom." Mom relaxed, and Eraserhead followed suit a moment later. Hawks dropped his suitcases next to the couch and plopped down. He still hadn't noticed the extra adult in the room. That wasn't even the worst of it. There was this little girl, daughter of some drag lord or another. I went in, took out the drag lord, and then MDM president got angry that I took the girl and her mother to a women's shelter instead of dispatching them like you should have done, as if that's even remotely moral. Or legal. I refuse to hurt innocent people like that. I mean, the guy had both of them locked up, for crying out loud. It's not like they'd take over the family business. The mom cried so hard when I dropped them off. She wouldn't stop thanking me. Hawks shook his head. I am so done with the commission. Which is actually why I'm here. It seemed Kigo had finally realized Eraserhead was there. Mom had a poorly hidden smile on her face, like she was trying not to laugh. Izuku didn't care enough to hide his laughter. "Oh, hi, Eraser." "Hawks." Eraserhead raised a brow. Izuku tried to smother his laughter, and Mom let out a snort. "You were going to explain why you're here." Yeah. I was just going to ask if I could stay here. What are you doing here?" "A mission. Supposed to be recon, and apparently Vispiros was the best agent for the job." "Vispiros? Who?" "Oh, right, okay. That's your new name, isn't it?" "Yeah, he probably is. Not much can get past him." Izuku blushed at the compliment. Behind him, Izuku could hear the ghosts chatting as well. "Hey, there, I'm Oboro. What's your name, pretty lady?" "Liza, and I'm way too old for you." "Ah, but you forget, we're ghosts. I'm actually the same age as Shoyuta." "Who?" "The hobo man over there talking to Hawks." Izuku doubled over in laughter. Oh, that was too good. Eraserhead did look a little like a hobo. The three non-ghost adults turned to where Izuku sat clutching his stomach. "What's so funny?" Mom asked knowingly. Izuku tried answering, but couldn't get words out. He ended up just pointing in Eraserhead's direction. The pro-hero grimaced, and gave Mom an apologetic look. He might still have some anesthesia in his system. Anesthesia? Mom and Kigo said in unison. Izuku was pretty sure those had worn off already. "He's fine," Eraserhead said hurriedly. "I took him to the hospital for his arms, and a possible concussion. The doctors said he was fine." "So what was the anesthesia for?" Kigo demanded. He stood with his wings splayed out. He seemed agitated, Izuku thought. I don't see how it's any of your business, but it is mine, Mom interrupted. Ooh. That was her serious tone. Izuku didn't want to be on the receiving end of that. Eraserhead sighed, and pulled out some papers from his utility belt. These detail everything. He really is fine. He didn't have a concussion. The anesthesia was a precaution. The healer they have on staff at the moment has a healing quirk that allows them to fix anything. The problem is that it works so fast that patients' bodies react, violently, unless they're sedated. As for any psychological damage, if anything comes up, I have the numbers of a few good therapists. Izuku was touched. Eraserhead was full of surprises, it seemed. He already knew about the specialist, obviously, because he had been there. But the hero was concerned about him. He wondered idly if he had noticed that before, or if he was just realizing it now. He shrugged. It didn't really matter. Izuku became distracted by the ghosts for a minute. Oh, come on, Miss Liza, I promise I can show you a real good time. Leave her alone, Oboro, Namura said. She's not interested. You are cute, Oboro-chan, but in a puppy kind of way. Liza chuckled. Besides, I think your hobo over there is more my type. What? Izuku lost it again. He couldn't help it. Unfortunately, no one else could hear the shenanigans, so to the others, he probably looked a little insane. Are you sure he doesn't have a concussion? Kigo asked. He knelt next to Izuku and pulled his helmet off. Hey, bro, you okay? The boy forced himself to take a deep breath and tried to address Kigo's concerned face with seriousness. I'm fine. I'm pretty sure the anesthetic wore off at least an hour ago. The ghosts are just, Oboro called Eraserhead, you can call me Aizawa. Oh, sure. Oboro called Aizawa a hobo man, and he's been trying to flirt with Liza but don't you dare, said Liza. Izuku gave her a mischievous grin. But Liza said she thinks he's cute but she prefers the hobo man. To his credit, Eraserhead didn't react. He kept a perfectly stoic face. Somehow, though, Izuku knew the man was blushing inwardly. Actually, Izuku could feel it. He could feel everyone's feelings. Eraserhead's embarrassment and confusion weren't strong, but Kigo's concern and relief, Mom's amusement, Liza's mortification, Namura's curiosity, and Oboro's mischievousness were very strong. All things considered, it was a little much. Pressure started building in his head, right behind his eyes. Okay, it was more than a little much. He rubbed his eyes, looked up, and immediately wished he hadn't. The room spun. He dully heard Aizawa say something, but he didn't catch what it was because everyone's emotions suddenly changed. A large bowl was forced in front of him, and just in time. Izuku puked. He was glad he was already sitting on the floor, because he probably would have fallen if he wasn't. Everyone's emotions settled on either being concerned or worried, and Izuku sighed in relief. Two emotions were easier to deal with than all the different ones before. He took a few deep breaths. You okay, kid? Aizawa asked. It was his hand holding the bowl. How did you know that was coming, Eraser? Kigo asked. He made a face. I work with headstrong teenagers who don't like to admit when they're sick or hurt. I know that expression when I see it. Izuku patted the man's hand in gratitude. Thanks, he said weakly. No problem, kid. Aizawa raised from his crouched position, presumably to clean out the bowl. Mom sat down next to him, and he leaned into her side. His head still spun, but it wasn't as bad now. They sat silently for a while. Are you all right, sweetheart? Does your head hurt, or your arms? Izuku could tell what she was actually asking. I'm not in pain because of my injuries, he said. I think it's part of my quirk. Everyone's emotions shifted again, to a strong mixture of relief, confusion, and concern. This time Izuku grabbed his mom's arm and tried to keep his stomach from rebelling. Luckily, Aizawa had just returned with the bowl. Izuku launched himself at the man, grabbed the bowl, and threw up again. He felt an arm snake around his shoulders, helping to hold him up. "Maybe we should move you to the bathroom, kid." Izuku nodded and let the man lead him there. Everyone else followed close behind, their emotions getting even more complex, and louder, for lack of a better word. It made him dizzy, and he emptied what was left in his stomach as soon as he reached the toilet. He took a shuddering breath, willing the tears to stop. Aizawa stepped out of the way, only for Mom to take his place. "What is it, sweetheart? Do you want some water? Can you all give me some space, please? Ghosts too. I can feel everything you're feeling, and it's too much. I can't, he groaned as another bout of nausea rolled over him. It lessened with each person that left. The ghosts left the house entirely, but stayed nearby. Kigo and Aizawa stayed in the living room, which was fine. He could still feel Kigo's emotions, but they weren't anywhere near as strong now. Which left his mom. "Mom." "Yes, Izuku. I'm so sorry, but can you go, too? I don't want to be alone, but your emotions are the strongest out of everyone's." "I don't know why, I'm sorry, it's just too much," Izuku sobbed, tears rolling down his cheeks and falling into the toilet, which his mom flushed before rubbing his back. He could feel how hurt she felt, but also how much she loved him. "Don't feel bad about asking me to leave, sweetheart. This won't last, I'm sure, and I'll be close enough you can ask for help if you need it." "Okay." He still really didn't want to be alone. He didn't know what was going on. If this was part of his quirk, how did that work? His quirk was ghost talk. It wasn't emotion-based as far as he knew. Then again, he had always been good at knowing how people felt. Maybe the blast had knocked something into place. He scratched the back of his neck, thinking. The blast, he had also turned intangible. That at least made sense. Intangibility could be an extension of some ghostly part of his quirk. But the emotion thing, not so much. Izuku felt more than heard the approach of Aizawa. Even then, the man's emotions were almost as quiet as he was. "Here, kid." He held out a bottle of ginger ale. "Your mom said to give this to you." "Thanks." Izuku leaned back against the tub, tears still wet on his face. He hated throwing up. He took a sip of the soda. Aizawa's emotions were calm, almost gentle, and, most importantly, quiet. Could you stay with me?" "You don't have to," but Aizawa was sitting down before Izuku could even finish his thought. The man didn't look at him, but Izuku could feel the kindness softly radiating off him. Wow! Who would have known that Eraserhead, the fearfully respected underground hero, was such a softie? Izuku closed his eyes. "So," said Aizawa, "you can feel others' feelings." "Apparently." "And you can turn intangible." "Apparently." "And you've never been taught to turn your quirk off." Wait, what? My quirk doesn't turn off. So if I used erasure on you, you would still be able to see ghosts? Well, would he? Do you want me to try it? Yes, Izuku said immediately. If it did work, maybe erasure could stop him from feeling everything. His headache might go away. Let me summon someone first, though. I want to know what happens with them. Izuku summoned Namura, since he was probably the quietest of the ghosts. Then, Aizawa lazily activated his quirk, and everything went quiet. Izuku collapsed in relief. Namura still stood awkwardly in the doorway. You good, kid? Yeah. Yeah, I'm good. And then Izuku felt dizzy for an entirely different reason. Everything was too quiet. He had never felt such silence. He couldn't feel the ghosts or anyone in the other room. Panic rose in his gut, but he pushed it down. I can still see Namura, but I can't feel him, or any of the ghosts anymore. And then I can't feel anything. I mean, I can feel my own feelings, but it's never been this quiet before. It feels wrong. I don't like it. Can you still hear Agent Namura? I don't know what to say here, Namura said. I can, but it's like he's really far away, or underwater. I guess my quirk is a mix of a mutation and a normal quirk, Izuku muttered. Erasure cancelled out some of the things I can do, but not the actual quirk. Put it back, please. Please put it back now, I really don't like this. I really didn't like it it's to put it back. Aizawa deactivated Erasure, and everything came back full force. Izuku retched into the toilet, and Namura left again. The hero winced. Sorry. I didn't think that would happen. It's okay, Izuku shuddered. I need tea, ugh, get used to it. Izuku, are you alright? Mom called. Fine, he called back. I've got him, Inko-san. Aizawa poked his head out the door. I'm trying to help him get this under control. Alright, then. Izuku pinched his eyes closed as he leaned over the toilet bowl. If the pro-hero could help him get this under control, that would be great. Kid, I want you to try something for me. Focus on me. Try blocking out everything else, and just focus on me and my emotions. Don't think about anything else, just me. Izuku did as he was told, and the overwhelmed part of his mind dulled a little. His breath came in heavy gasps. The more he tried to tune into just Aizawa, the less he felt everything else. The urge to touch him suddenly surged through his veins, and Izuku found himself grabbing Aizawa's wrist. And then it was just Aizawa, and some oddly parental emotions. It was almost like his mom, but quieter. Izuku could still distantly feel everyone else, but it was like before this whole fiasco. Normal. Good, kid. Now try breaking the connection. Slowly, not all at once. If you can do that, it might keep your mind from trying to connect to everything else. Once again, Izuku did as he was told. And, it worked. It worked. He felt normal again. He couldn't help the tears that dripped down his face again. Thank you. Izuku wrapped his arms around Aizawa's chest and the man let out a little gasp. Maybe he had hugged too hard or too fast, but he couldn't find it in himself to care. Already, he felt so much better. He could use some dinner. The two of them emerged from the bathroom, Izuku happily following Aizawa toward the kitchen. Hey, little Zuku, feeling better? Kigo asked from the couch, where he was reading one of the romance novels. Yeah. And it's all thanks to Aizawa-san. Don't sing my praises just yet, kid. You have a long way to go. But you did help me. It's my job to help. Izuku rolled his eyes. He knew the man was hiding a smile behind his capture scarf. Oh, wonderful, Mom said, tears in her eyes. Thank you so much, Shudakun. You're such a big help. And now Aizawa was hiding a blush. Izuku thought he was starting to like this new facet of his quirk. Or was it an old one that had suddenly gotten stronger? Actually, maybe that's what the blast had done. He had come close to death, and his quirk responded by getting stronger. He still wasn't sure how emotions fit into all of this, but he at least had an idea now. The rest of the evening passed quietly and without incident. As Izuku snuggled into his blankets after Aizawa left, he smiled. The day had been a roller coaster for sure, but a good one. He wondered what the next day would bring. Chapter 6, An offer. The next day brought normalcy. As well as the day after that, and the day after that. With the exception of Kigo staying with them, everything was normal. Until the following Tuesday. Hey kid. Izuku gave a bewildered look to the reporter talking to him. There were at least 20 other reporters and a small group of civilians outside of his house. Do you live in this building? Yes. Is it true that Hawks has moved into this building? Ah. That's why there were so many people. Izuku smirked inwardly. He would answer these people's questions. It's not true at all, he smiled, playing up the stutter. If he really did move here, I think there would be more security, don't you? Plus then the kids at school would be nicer to me. Ugh, you're no help kid. Wait, but the apartments down that way just upped their security. Maybe he's there. The woman muttered to herself before going off to consult her fellow reporters, and then they all booked it down the block. Izuku shook his head. How gullible could they be? Inside the apartment, Kigo lounged on the couch, feathers dancing in the air around him. He looked up when Izuku sat heavily next to him. Long day. Yeah. Reporters were swamping the apartment a minute ago. I got them to go down the street. Nice. How was your day? Pretty good. Normal. I used the roof to get to and from work. I thought I'd been doing a pretty good job staying incognito, but I guess not. Izuku shrugged, not bothering to say more. The two sat in silence. The boy took a couple of feathers out of the air and fiddled with them until his neck started hurting again. Kachan's lackeys had been a little extra rough today, and Izuku thought they may have cut his neck. The only thing was, he couldn't think of a single time that day where they had actually touched him there. There was a light burn on his forearm, a bruise on his leg, and a small cut on his side. It was more of a scratch, really. Nothing that should be irritating his neck. Izuku racked his brain as he scratched at it, and tried to think if there had been any injuries recently that would have resulted in this. Whatcha thinking about, SQR? Oh, nothing, Izuku answered with a small smile. My neck just hurts a little, that's all. Hurts how? Kigo sat up. Did those bullies hurt you again? No, well, yes, they hurt me, but I don't think it was them for this. Izuku explained the strange irritation while pulling down his shirt collar. That looks like you've been scratching at it all day. Not really. Just an hour or two. You should probably get that checked out. It's probably just a bug bite or something. Actually, where's Mom? I think she has some anti-itch cream for stuff like this. She's running errands. Maybe text her. Izuku did as Kigo said, then flopped over onto the hero. Kigo let out a small oof, and shifted so they were next to each other. The man sent his feathers into a large pin cushion he had brought with him. Without the feathers, it looked like a giant tomato, much to Izuku's amusement. With the feathers, it became an odd decoration that you probably wouldn't see outside of a catalog. They laid there in companionable silence, one reading his romance novel and the other dozing. Quite some time passed like that, until the door creaked open. Izuku, Kigo, we have company, Mom said as she towed her shoes off. Behind her was Aizawa carrying several grocery bags. Izuku shimmied off the couch to greet the other adults. Hey, Eraserhead, Kigo said lazily, not bothering to move. Hawks. Shouldn't you be helping your host with the groceries? You're not my host. TCH, Kigo, Mom said in a slightly warning tone. All right, said Kigo with his hands held up defensively. I don't mind helping. The heroes glared coolly at each other, although it was mostly for show. Izuku could tell. There was a mutual respect between the two. He grinned to himself. What's that? Aizawa asked when Kigo set his book down. It's called Soft as a Feather. It's the second book in this trilogy. Ichem. Your taste in literature is abominable. Before Kigo could indignantly defend himself, Aizawa continued, Feathers Free was much better. Kigo made a choking sound. You've read No. No, there's no way you read this series. Oboro popped up behind Aizawa and whispered to Izuku, he actually did. I think he teared up on that last one. Izuku tried to hide a snort, but failed miserably. What? Kigo asked. And nothing, Izuku shook his head. He followed his mom into the kitchen. Aizawa probably wouldn't appreciate that fact being told. Hearing what the ghosts wanted to say was one thing, but saying those things in front of multiple people was another. He would feel bad if he purposely gave Kigo blackmail material. Changing the subject, Izuku asked, "So, what brings you here, Aizawa-san?" "I invited him over for dinner," Mom said cheerily. "He has an offer for you." "An offer? Count him interested." Izuku's mind whirled with thoughts of what it could be. It couldn't be commission-related, or else Namura would have warned him. As it was, both Namura and Oboro were sitting on the counter with knowing looks. Izuku looked at Aizawa expectantly. "After dinner, kid." Dinner couldn't end soon enough. Fortunately, it also flew by. Afterwards, the underground hero offered to train Izuku more before school started. How cool was that? He emphatically accepted. "You should know we won't be focusing on any quirk usage. As much as I would like to train you on that, I can't legally do it outside of school." "That's okay. I'll train everything else." "We start tomorrow," said Aizawa. This was going to be fun. Chapter 7, A Sludgy Mess. This was not fun. The day had started poorly enough. The bullying had been especially bad today. Several spider lilies on his desk throughout the day had hurt to see, and then Kachin had. He had come by the apartment with a written apology and tears in his eyes, but he had still said, Izuku had thought training would be better. And it was, in the important ways. There weren't any spider lilies, and any injuries he sustained were minor and treated quickly. Training involved a lot of weightlifting, as well as agility. Hand-to-hand combat wasn't too bad, except when Izuku didn't block or dodge in time. Even then, he knew Aizawa was taking it easy on him. There weren't any ghosts today. Oboro was busy trying to woo Liza, and Namura was trying to stop him. Hana, as usual, was watching her brother's activities. "Not like that. Try like this." Aizawa mimed the move he was teaching and Izuku did his best to copy it. "Right, there you go. Now do it against me." By the time training had ended, Izuku had the move down, as well as a soreness in his muscles. "Not bad today, kid." Aizawa leaned casually against the wall of the dojo he had reserved. Apparently, he knew the owner, and the owner let him use it during certain times of the week. "Same time tomorrow." Izuku nodded. It wasn't as fun as he thought it would be, but the training seemed pretty reasonable. And it felt good, even though it was a little hard. "All right. Let's grab some dinner, then I'll send you home." "Oh, you don't have to do the, I decided to work with you during dinner hours, I'll take care of dinner. I'm not sending you home to your mother with an empty stomach." No arguments. Aizawa stared at him like he expected Izuku to argue anyway. Not that he would. Izuku shrugged. Mom would inevitably save him some dinner, but he supposed he could eat it for lunch tomorrow. After stopping at a rather high-end restaurant, which Izuku was not allowed to order anything cheap at, they parted ways. Aizawa was nearly late for patrol, Oboro had told him. Izuku would have felt bad about that, but then he realized that Aizawa had done that to himself. He could have called practice off earlier. With a full stomach, the boy headed for home. His neck still itched from yesterday. He really should find some itch cream. A wall of something wet stopped him. Izuku spat the sludge out of his mouth, then peered up at a villain. Maybe Aizawa was still close enough to hear him scream. Before he could do anything, the sludge jumped into his throat, proclaiming, "A perfect meat suit." How convenient. This wasn't good. His vision started going black when the villain had gotten halfway. The sludge curled in his stomach, writhed in his throat. He would have puked, if the villain hadn't been in the way. Izuku was dimly aware of a woman shouting, and a man saying something softly nearby. Smash! Suddenly, the suffocating sludge disappeared, leaving Izuku coughing and hacking on the sidewalk. Izuku looked up at his savior, only to start choking for a different reason. "Ha! I have caught you finally, villain!" All Might exclaimed. Izuku's eyes bugged out of his face. All Might was here. In front of him. There were several ghosts around him, but the sheer disbelief Izuku felt pushed them to the back of his mind. This was all. Freaking Might. I must go now. Wait. Izuku reached for All Might as the man prepared to jump. Can I have your autograph a? All Might jumped. Izuku hadn't meant to grab on, but the motion had been so sudden that he just latched onto the first thing he could to prevent himself from being thrown through the air. As it turned out, the action had the opposite effect of what Izuku had intended. Instead of being safely held on the ground, Izuku soared through the air. All Might noticed, thankfully, and sat down on a roof. "Geez, kid, do you have a death wish or something?" All Might asked. Izuku took a few shaky steps. "Geez, All Might, do you ever make sure victims are taken care of before leaving them at the scene of their almost murder?" The snark hadn't been intentional. Izuku was still dizzy, and he momentarily forgot his figurative mask. Several people snickered. When Izuku looked up, there were 4 ghosts sitting on the roof's edge behind All Might. A woman with black hair, a man with a scar on his face, a man with a bandana, and a skinny man with white hair. The hero himself looked taken aback. Smoke came off of him in little tendrils. "Oh, Toshi," one of the ghosts sighed. She twirled her dark hair in her yellow-gloved fingers. "You're going to let the kid see your secret, aren't you? This could have been avoided, you know. And I can't believe you were just going to leave him. That's so unlike you." What secret was what Izuku was about to ask, but it was answered before he could. All Might, big, indestructible, incredible All Might, poof, ed into a very tall, very skinny man in very baggy clothes. Izuku bit back a scream. "Ah," the man coughed, well, you see," the man stopped, seeming as if he was trying to find an excuse for his sudden change. He sighed, and Izuku got the impression he had decided to tell the truth. "Many years ago, I was wounded gravely by a villain." He lifted his shirt, revealing a terrible-looking wound, and most of the ghosts lost it. One of them laughed so hard he actually fell backward off the roof, only to soar back up several seconds later. Izuku's surprise showed on his face. Most ghosts could handle a simple hover a couple of feet off the ground. The more powerful ones could maybe make it 10 feet. The ghost that had fallen could have easily reached the ground in that time, and shot back up just as quickly as he fell. Izuku scratched at his neck, idly wondering how powerful these ghosts must be. And then he thanked his lucky stars that they weren't evil. "I know, it's not pretty," said the man who used to be All Might. Izuku had momentarily forgotten where he was and what he was supposed to be doing. He shook himself mentally. "Because of this, I was forced to cut back on my hero work. I'm down to a mere 3 hours per day." "Oh, I wondered about that," Izuku said. The hero gave the boy an incredulous look, so Izuku elaborated. "Because you used to do an average of 10 hours of hero work per day after your debut, then 7 after you became popular with the media. But in the last few years, your averages have gone down significantly. You must be spreading everything out throughout the day, though, to give the illusion that you're still out there all day every day. Which would be good for civilian morale. Dang, the kid's a chatterbox, isn't he?" One of the ghosts said as Izuku devolved into a stream of muttering. The boy had noticed the comment, though, and stopped. "Sorry." Izuku positioned himself so that he seemed to be awkwardly avoiding All Might's gaze while leveling his best glare at the ghost. "It's quite all right, young man," said All Might at the same time the ghost asked, "Was he looking at me?" Could I ask you something?" "Go ahead." "Do you think that someone Quirkless could be a hero? Oh, or someone with a quirk that isn't suited to heroics?" Are you asking for you, or for a friend? Both. I'm Quirkless. Izuku felt an unexpected twinge of guilt at the lie. And I was wondering, I am already learning how to fight, I just wondered, in my experience, young man, without a quirk, you can't become a hero. Oh. But there are other kinds of heroes, like police officers or firefighters. Not everyone is suited to traditional heroics, but you can always find a place if you look hard enough. You just need to be realistic. A nagging feeling of despondency settled in Izuku's gut. Even though he could interact with ghosts, his quirk probably wouldn't help him much if he wanted to be a spotlight hero. Which, although he hadn't thought about it in a while, he did. Doing missions for the commission was fine. It wasn't really what he wanted to do. He had really wanted to be someone cool, someone like All Might. For a tiny second, Izuku wondered what might happen if he just looked too far over the edge of the roof. Then, he mentally pushed the intrusive thought away. That was a dangerous line of thinking, and one that Izuku didn't like. He didn't have the easiest life, but there was still good in it. And even if his hero, his idol, didn't think he could be a hero, maybe the other heroes in his life did. So, Izuku took a few steps toward the edge of the roof. All Might tensed, anxiety radiating off of him in waves. Izuku went right to the edge, just to bother the man. Serve him right for trying to leave a civilian victim in the street and then crushing that civilian's dreams. I assume you're out of time. How are we supposed to get down from here? All Might joined him at the edge. One of the ghosts from before, the woman, sighed next to the two of them. You're both smart, she said. Surely you can figure something out. There's a roof access behind you. In plain sight. Izuku grinned mischievously in his head. You know, he said, we're both pretty smart. I'm sure we could figure something out. The boy very nearly burst out laughing when the ghost looked at him like he had grown a second head. There's probably a roof access, said All Might, still looking out at the city. Oh, there is. It's right behind us. In plain sight. Can he hear me? The woman wondered aloud. Casually, Izuku stretched and started toward the door. He shot her a wink on his way. What, hey, kid. Izuku ignored the woman. She would probably follow him until he acknowledged her again, which wouldn't be for a while. Not with All Might 2 steps behind him. Listen, young man, would appreciate it if you wouldn't tell anyone about this. It's supposed to stay secret. The boy fought the urge to roll his eyes. I can keep a secret, All Might. Or whatever your real name is. It's not hard. Unless the ghosts decided they wanted something. Then it was very hard. Besides, I don't think the Hero Commission would like it if this got out. The blonde frowned, eyebrows furrowed. What an odd concern for a child to have, the man muttered. Darn right, Toshinori. Come on, there's something off about this kid. Ask him about it. The stairwell ended, finally, and the two living beings exited the building. Two of the ghosts had followed, the other two having chosen to drift down from the roof. Izuku fought to keep his eyes off of them. Past a certain height, ghosts would fall just like the living. The threshold for a ghost's hovering had always been directly connected to how strong the ghost was. Izuku still couldn't wrap his mind around how strong these four must be. I apologize, but I must get this villain to the police. Can you find your way home? What? The little amount of starstruckness that had somehow lingered in Izuku's chest vanished. Are you being serious right now? What the CRP, 8? One of the ghosts, the one with the scar and the ginger hair, glared at All Might. The ghost with the black bandana mimed a punch at the skeletal man. It passed right though, but All Might shivered nonetheless. You're going to leave a victim, a child, no less, to go home by himself, after everything he just went through. I'll be fine, said Izuku, brushing past the number one hero. That was a total lie. His throat still burned. Some of the slime had made it into his shoes, which was uncomfortable in an entirely different way. He eyed All Might's pocket, where the villain was, or used to be. "I'll be fine, but you might want to find that villain." With that, Izuku left the hero behind. A few choice swears were muttered behind him, and then the telltale whoosh of All Might jumping away rustled his hair. Ha! The man must have had a little more time than he had thought. He heaved a sigh and started back to the apartment. What would Kigo think of what happened today? Or Aizawa? It was doubtful that either of them would be very happy about it. Izuku scratched at his ever-itchy neck. Of all the ways to meet All Might, this had to be the worst. As he kicked a pebble down the sidewalk, Izuku became aware that he was being followed. Once he got closer to home, he ducked into an alleyway. Normally he would have this conversation at home, but he didn't really want his mom to overhear anything about the sludge villain from earlier. He was fine, and there was no need to worry her. "I'm telling you, Kudo," the kid winked at me. "We need to find out what's going on. It's probably nothing, 7. Maybe he had something in his eye." He most definitely did not. He was grinning. The two ghosts peeked their heads around the edge of the buildings, eyes settling on where Izuku had sat down. Poor kid, though. He looked like he'd had a rough day. "I did," he said. The ghosts both stilled. "I had a very rough day. The first thing you should know about me is that I'm quirkless. And the second thing you should know about me is that the first thing is a lie. You can come closer, if you want. Might make me look less crazy if I'm muttering to myself instead of talking to thin air." The woman, 7. Took a tentative step forward. The man just waltzed right in. "Why are you hesitating, Nana? We're dead. Nothing can hurt us. We're strangers to him." "I'd be wary of strangers, even if they were dead." "If it makes you feel any better," said Izuku, head resting on the wall behind him, "I can command ghosts to do what I want. Even if you did try to harm me, I could stop you easily." He didn't mention how commanding ghosts gave him a splitting headache. He did his best to avoid it. The woman, Nana, seemed a little perturbed, but joined her friend in front of Izuku. They sat in front of him. "I'm Nana," said the woman, "and this is Kudo." Sorry for his lack of manners. "It's fine. My name is Izuku." "Nice to meet you, kid," said Kudo. They all stared at each other when the boy didn't answer. "So," Izuku said after a minute. "I assume you have questions." "I think most of her questions were answered when you spoke to us." Kudo shared a glance with Nana, who nodded. "But I think I speak for the both of us when I ask, are you really all right? That villain was no joke. And 8th really should have taken you to the hospital or something." "Yeah, he probably should have," Izuku agreed. He was awfully tired now. But he didn't. "It was partially my fault. I distracted him. And before you try making me feel better, I did that on purpose. I'm not being self-deprecating." "Well, that's something." Nana frowned, and the boy could feel her conflicting emotions. Ugh. Not fun. He tried blocking them out like Aizawa had taught him. Kudo shook his head. Yagi really needs to pay more attention. He might have had a busy day, but that shouldn't have been enough to let a tiny distraction get in his way. So his name is Yagi. Or Toshi. Or is it 8th? The ghosts made guilty faces. "Well, kiddo, you weren't really supposed to hear either of those names. It's meant to be a secret." Nana grimaced at the deadpan look Izuku gave her. "But I guess I'll have to make an exception. You already know most of it. His name is Yagi Toshinori." "I'm pretty sure 8th made the exception the second he deflated, Nana." "Well, I'm sure." A large explosion rang out nearby. People ran both toward and away from whatever it was. Izuku ran as well, all the weariness from the day disappearing. Those explosions, they sounded eerily like Kachan's. The boy pushed his way through a crowd of people who were being held back by heroes. So many heroes were on the scene, including Kamui Woods. Izuku's hands itched to write, but he noticed the familiar villain. Worse, he noticed and recognized the villain's hostage. "We need backup," one of the heroes shouted. Another said something about quirks not being suited for this. Feet pounding on the ground, backpack ready to be thrown, Izuku ran desperately for his childhood friend. The two ghosts were mere inches behind him. Kachan's fear-filled eyes found his, and Izuku threw the bag. It wasn't enough. The sludge still covered Kachan's face. The bag dropped right in front of them. No, the green-haired boy thought. No, 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 no. Please, no. He dug at the sludge, frantically and with all the effort he could muster. The ghosts tried digging as well. They couldn't get a grip on anything, but they were trying. They were trying when no one else was, and even if it wasn't helping, Izuku was so grateful for them. He didn't have time to stop, to charge their hands, but he wished so desperately to save Kachan. Izuku felt a tug in his gut, and suddenly, "I'm moving some." Nana exclaimed. "Keep digging, kid, we'll help you." "It's not enough," growled Kudo. He paused just long enough to throw a glowing fist at the villain. "It's not enough." Instead of passing through like the ghost probably expected, his fist connected, and the villain slowed. Not a lot, but enough. Izuku grabbed his backpack from where it had landed and threw it again. This time, it caught the villain in the eye. The villain reared back, and Kachan took a big breath. From behind them came a loudly proclaimed smash, and then it was over. The villain was back in a bottle, civilians cheered, and the two boys collapsed on the ground. "What was that?" Kachan rasped. The first responders hadn't quite gotten to them yet. Still panting, Kachan went on, "Did you suddenly develop a quirk, or something?" "Or something," Izuku said distantly. The medics got to them and began asking questions, mostly about their identities and quirks. They were less energetic when Izuku said he was quirkless. After being checked over by the medical personnel, a few heroes cornered the boys. They lauded Kachan for being so brave, and not giving in, and, "When you get to be older, come to my agency for an internship." And then those same heroes turned to Izuku and told him off for running in like that. "What were you thinking, and what kind of quirk do you have that made you think that was a good idea?" were the #1 questions. Already resigning himself to the outcome, Izuku told them, "I'm quirkless." Which brought on an entirely new onslaught of lectures on why what he did was stupid. And then, while they loaded Kachan onto an ambulance, the medics told him to go home. He sighed. Same old, same old. On the bright side, his new ghost friends followed him home. He was more exhausted than ever, and their company was appreciated. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, Izuku didn't know, they weren't the only ones. A few blocks away from the crime scene, the skeletal form of Yagi Toshinori caught up to him, along with the other two ghosts from before. "Young man, please wait," the man gasped. He seemed to have run here in this state. "Look, All Might, I promise I'll keep your secret, but I'm tired and I would like to go home." "And you will, I promise. I just wanted to thank you." "Thank me." Izuku leaned on a nearby fence to support his weight. "What for?" "For reminding me of what a hero is. I lost sight of that, at least a bit. One thing that every hero can say is that their feet moved without them telling them to. It was like that for you, today wasn't it?" Izuku didn't answer, and All Might went on, "I know I said you couldn't be a hero, but what if you could?" "Huh." Izuku's head was starting to hurt. "Young man, my quirk, it can be passed on." All Might explained a bit about it, then, "If you're willing, I would like to give you the same chance that I was given." This had to be a dream. None of this seemed real. But what All Might was offering, could it be worth it? Nana got his attention. I won't tell you what to do, kiddo, but if you accept, I think you'd make an amazing successor. You're already an amazing hero. I accept, said Izuku. All Might nodded, a smile on his lips. The smile disappeared after a moment. Are you all right? You look a little pale. I'm fine. The medics cleared me and everything. Really? I thought they would at least take you to be evaluated. Nope. Well, if you don't mind my knowing, where do you live? I'd like to make sure you get home safely. Over there, Izuku swayed. The apartment was so close, within sight even, yet so far. Its apartment, the fence the boy leaned on creaked. His head really hurt now. The sickly-looking ghost with the white hair frowned, brow furrowed. 8, you're going to need to catch him, was all Izuku heard before everything went dark. Chapter 8, Ghostly Interference. Izuku was late. Kigo had finished his work early today, easily early enough to beat the boy home. Even after he remembered that Eraserhead was training him today, he still worried. The kid should have been home an hour ago, at least. The sun was setting already. If it got any later, Kigo would go looking for the kid himself. Inko would probably dissuade him, if only to not draw attention. She would probably contact some nearby friends and enlist them to look. Unfortunately, Inko had been called in to deal with something at the HPSC and wouldn't be available for another hour, if not longer. Just as Kigo was about to send Izuku another text, there was a knock on the door. Who wants what? Kigo asked in lieu of an actual greeting, then froze when he saw an emaciated blonde man carrying an unconscious Izuku. Oh, Hawks, hello. Kigo narrowed his eyes at the familiar man. All Might. Hello, again, is this the right address? The young man said apartment 23, yes, this is the Midoriya apartment. Well, could I come in? I'm by no means as weak as I look in this form, but the boy is rather heavy once you've been carrying him a while. Instead of moving out of the way, Kigo took Izuku from the man, and led the way to the living room couch. He wrinkled his nose. Some sort of liquid covered the boy from head to toe, and it did not smell good. The hero checked Izuku's pulse, which was strong, and his breathing, which was a little raspy, but otherwise fine. He turned a glare on the number 1 hero. What happened? Well, Yagi rubbed his neck awkwardly. There was an incident today. A villain made of sludge attacked young Midoriya, and then got away. I'm sorry, is this the same villain I saw on the news 45 minutes ago? The one that was holding a child captive. Izuku was that child. Yes and no. Well, which is it? He was held captive, yes, but earlier in the day. Then, I saved him, but through some unforeseen circumstances, the villain got away and attacked a different student, who young Midoriya ran to save. And where were the heroes in this? Where were you? Kigo asked angrily as he pulled out his phone. Who to contact? He needed to make sure Izuku was alright, but anyone from the commission would immediately report this. As much help as some of those doctors were to heroes, most didn't know about Izuku's quirk, and unfortunately several were quirkist. Or suspected to be. I apologize, but the heroes on the scene weren't exactly good to Midoriya. I wasn't able to get close enough to hear what was said, but it seemed like they were chewing him out. And the medics took the other boy to the hospital and left Midoriya to go home, which didn't sit quite right with me, especially because the man trailed off. Anyway, when I figured out which way he went, I caught up with him, just in case. A good thing I did, too. He collapsed not 5 minutes later. Well, I appreciate that, Kigo said, a little less venom in his voice. With a sigh, he tapped on a name in his phone. If you want a drink, help yourself to something in the fridge. I don't know how far you carried him, but I'm sure his mother would give you that and more as a thank you. Well, I don't want to impose, but I'll take a glass of water if you don't mind. Go ahead. Kigo nodded at the kitchen as he put the phone to his ear. The recipient of his call practically growled at him. "What do you want, Hawks? This better be important. You should know I'm on patrol." "Look, I'm sorry to bother you, Eraser, but did you see the news earlier?" "Again. On patrol." The sound in his ear got staticky, like there was a lot of wind. When it died down, Kigo continued. "A villain attacked a student. I think it's the explodey one from Zuku's school. And apparently, he attacked Izuku first." "What?" The reply sounded deadly. Long story short, Izuku had 2 encounters with him, and All Might brought him home. He's in pretty rough shape, and I can't get him to wake up, but his pulse is strong. So take him to the hospital. "You know why I can't do that," Kigo hissed as Yagi came back into the room. The man looked at Izuku with concern, then sent a questioning look at Kigo. "Look, do you or do you not have a medical professional's number? One that can keep their mouth shut?" A sigh rattled over the speaker, and Yagi frowned at the half of the conversation he could hear. Kigo ran a hand over his face. He didn't know how the kid kept his quirk a secret. "Hang on." There was some more rattling, more wind, and then Eraserhead continued. "Recovery girl can be there in 20 minutes. She can handle whatever you throw at her." "Where is she?" "What does that?" A grunt and some shouts rang out, only to silence a moment later. "Okay, I have a minute while I wait for the police to take these guys." "Why do you need to know where she is?" "She'll be there soon, and if 20 minutes is too long, then take him to the blasted hospital." "Look, Eraser, he's not in great shape, but he's not actively dying. Unless he starts actively dying, I will not be taking him to the hospital. But I would like to make sure he's all right as soon as possible." "Eraser." Yagi muttered. Kigo ignored him. He had bigger problems. "As soon as possible will be in 20 minutes. I know you're worried, but if he can't be fine for 20, closer to 15 now, minutes, then Recovery Girl won't be able to help him anyway. What am I supposed to do for 15 minutes? Kigo complained. "Not my problem." And then Eraserhead hung up. How dare he, Kigo muttered, but he had to admit that he was mostly looking for a distraction. Keeping his fingers on Izuku's pulse, he turned to Yagi. "All right. I have some questions." "Very well. I have some questions for you as well, starting with why you're here." Kigo gave him a shortened version, leaving out Izuku's quirk. "Now tell me about these medics that let him go home." A short time and many questions later, Recovery Girl knocked on the door. Kigo was only mildly surprised to find that she knew Yagi. He explained the situation to the elderly woman. After a few minutes of checking Izuku over, she sat next to the boy with a hum. "So. Is he okay? His throat is in rough shape, I assume from the villain. I doubt he has a concussion, so being asleep should be fine. The redness on his neck is a minor concern, and it feels like there's something underneath the skin. He may have 1 or 2 cracked ribs. Otherwise, it seems like a simple but severe case of quirk exhaustion." "But he's quirkless," said Yagi, his brows furrowed in confusion. "He told me so." "The symptoms are all there," replied Recovery Girl. "Perhaps it was an extremely late manifestation due to quirk activation requirements being met." "Perhaps," Yagi muttered. Kigo pursed his lips. The lights flickered. A little at first, barely noticeable. Then more, and more. It got to the point that Yagi asked if the electricity bill had been paid. Kigo had a sinking feeling that it was the ghosts, and they were trying to tell him something. Was it a warning that something was coming? He looked at Izuku, sleeping peacefully on the couch, and the flickering stopped. Okay. A sneaking suspicion told him that they wanted him to tell the truth. But it wasn't his secret to tell. He looked away, and the musicless rave continued. "This is highly concerning," said Yagi, staring at the main light. "Yes," Recovery Girl agreed. Perhaps we should all vacate the building. No, no. Kigo pinched the bridge of his nose. Okay, look, quit it with the lights already. I'm pretty sure I know what you want, and the answer is no. Who are you talking to? None of your business, Scarecrow. Yagi and Recovery Girl exchanged a glance, and then all the lights went out, leaving the living room in near darkness. The sky outside was twilight, so they could still see. Kigo scowled and shivered when not one, but 5 cold spots washed through him. Okay, I get it. But I really shouldn't. Another wave of coldness. Whichever one of you did that, I'm not talking to you anymore. Go away. But as for the rest of you, fine. I'll tell them. But if Inko or Izuku gets mad, you're taking the blame. Now stop glaring at me. The lights turned back on, and the 2 adults not in the know had their eyes trained on Kigo. The hero sighed. He was already regretting this. He hoped Izuku wouldn't be too mad when he woke up. Actually, forget that. Izuku might forgive him as soon as he apologized, but Inko on the other hand, Kigo wasn't sure he wanted to know what she would do. Izuku isn't quirkless, okay. He has a quirk, and he's been employed by the HPSC since he was 4 years old. He's a commission kid, like I was. Then he lied. Yagi sat back heavily in his chair. He asked me if someone quirkless or someone with a quirk ill-suited to heroics could be a hero. What did you tell him? Kigo asked, his expression stony. I told him no. But he was lying, screw that. The other adults jumped at Kigo's outburst. It doesn't matter if he was lying. You told a kid that he couldn't be a hero because he didn't have a quirk. Now, Hawks, I did tell him that there are different kinds of heroes. Yagi placated. I told him he could be an officer, or a firefighter. It's just that in my experience, no one without a quirk can be what we consider a traditional hero. Okay, fine. That's not as bad as I thought. But you still crushed his dream. After everything, I was going to. Yagi cut himself off with a guilty look. Never mind. Going to, what, Yagi? Kigo leveled a glare at the other hero that rivaled Eraserhead's. What were you going to do? You were considering him as a successor, weren't you? Recovery Girl leaned toward Yagi, and the lights flickered once. That means yes, Kigo said. The lights mean yes. The confusion was back on the others' faces. Kigo nodded. It's Izuku's quirk, the man sighed. I don't know if I should tell you any more than what I've already said. The lights flickered like crazy, and Kigo waved his arms around. All right. The lights stopped. If he could punch a ghost, he would. Izuku's quirk is called Ghost Talk. He can talk to ghosts, and command them to do things within reason. There's a limit to what they can do. From what he said, there aren't as many ghosts around as you might think. Apparently, they can pass on, but some of them linger for a while. If he isn't too upset later, maybe you can ask him for more details. His mom is going to kill me, though. No one is supposed to know about this. Yagi gave him a sympathetic look that Kigo didn't particularly want. If it makes you feel any better, you're talking to 2 people who have kept my situation a secret for a very long time. The lights flickered once, then twice. The winged hero narrowed his eyes. That means no, he said. Well, I've kept the secret just fine, said Recovery Girl with a pointed look at All Might. Then in a warning tone she asked, what did you do? About that, Yagi rubbed his neck. Young Midoriya knows. I ran out of energy and ended up deflating in front of him. Wow, nice going, Yagi. Kigo rolled his eyes. He knows about my quirk as well, the man added quietly. That bit seemed to only be directed at Recovery Girl. What about your quirk? Kigo looked from one to the other. They exchanged another glance, and after asking if he could keep a secret, they explained. With every word, Kigo's horror grew. You want to give a child an extremely powerful quirk that needs to be kept secret. I did, said Yagi, but then I found out he lied to me, so what? He only told you the story he's been conditioned to tell everyone. It's essential to his cover or some other bull CRP that the commission's been feeding him since day one. Did you know he gets bullied because of it? His own classmates torment him. Izuku won't tell me any specifics, but I've seen a spider lily fall out of his bag, and I know he has scars from his own classmates. He pretends it doesn't bother him, but you can tell. What's going on? Izuku stirred, opening his tired eyes. Hey, little Zuku. Kigo knelt next to the closest thing he had to a little brother. I didn't mean to wake you, but I'm glad you woke up. My head hurts. It's just quirk exhaustion. All you need is some rest. All Might's here. And who's she? That's Recovery Girl. And, I had to tell them about your quirk. The ghosts insisted. Emicham. They're telling me, too. Izuku seemed to stare off into space. Don't worry, Nana, it's okay. All Might told me about his quirk, so it's fair. I didn't really want to lie. Nana. Yagi whispered, his face turning pale. Shimura. The lights flickered once. Izuku groaned, and shifted positions. She says she misses you, and she's proud, and she hasn't left. And that you've been an idiot with everything that you've done to and around me. That's not nice, Nana. He wants to gimme his quirk. Izuku lost consciousness again. Kigo ran a hand through the boy's green curls. It's shocking, the first time. Isn't it? Kigo idly made one of his feathers dance through the air. Yagi didn't say anything. The first time he said something to me, I was about 11, maybe 12. He was only 5, I think. I had just completed my first solo mission, which screwed me up enough to get me sent to Agent Midoriya. She was in charge of fixing people, making them feel better long enough to get a new mission. Still is. The first time Izuku met me, he came up to me, and gave me a big hug. Then he told me that a little boy I failed to save wanted to say thank you. Yagi tried to say something, but words failed. Instead, he hung his head and said, Shimura Nana was my mentor. She died shortly after I gained one for all. Knowing she's still with me, it's a lot. I can only imagine what that was like for a 12-year-old. Well, you get used to it. That little boy passed on a long time ago, and now I have a PPNG-TM from America haunting me. The lights went out. Don't you glare at me. You're the one that followed me into the bathroom. The lights flickered twice, then turned back on. Even if it was an accident, you still did it. Her name is Liza, apparently. I saved her brother, so now she's following me around. Kigo addressed the emptiness in the room again. By the way, how many of you are there? The lamp in the corner flickered off and on 6 times. Okay, roll call is a bit hard with yes and no's, but that's more than I was expecting. Just then, a key rattled in the door, and Midoriya Inko walked in. Sorry I'm so late, boys, I had a really hard case. The woman stopped, staring at her 2 unexpected guests before her eyes landed on her son. Izuku. Before you freak out, Kigo held up his arms defensively. He's all right, just recovering from quirk exhaustion. What is all over him? That would be sludge, Midoriya-san, said Yagi. And I'm All Might, yes, I know. Don't you look at me like that. The commission was concerned about you 4 or 5 years ago and had me look over your file. What are you doing in my apartment? Izuku got attacked, and Yagi brought him home, Kigo said quickly. Then he added the rest of the context for the unfortunate situation they were in. The ghosts insisted you tell them. Inko asked skeptically. If I didn't tell, they probably would have lit an electrical fire. Very well. I suppose I can't blame you entirely. Suddenly, All the lights except the lamp next to Yagi turned off. The man warily eyed the lamp, while addressing Inko. I suppose that's the ghosts telling me to share my secret with you as well. The lamp blinked once, and so Yagi told yet another person his secret. You offered my son an extremely powerful quirk without asking me. With the amount of power you have, your quirk could blow my son apart from the inside out. Well, I was going to train him first, so that he wouldn't blast his limbs off. That isn't reassuring. And he's already in training. With Eraserhead. Really, the man blinked. Yes. And did you really ask him while he was suffering from quirk exhaustion? Do you have any idea how stupid? Inko's lecture continued for a solid 10 minutes. Despite her small stature, the woman could be quite intimidating when she wanted to be. Kigo would have felt bad for the other hero, if he wasn't so glad that Inko's ire wasn't directed at him. He settled on the floor next to Izuku. The boy didn't seem like he would wake any time soon, but it made Kigo feel better to be near, just in case. Chapter 9, Conditions. It was one thing to pass out in the presence of your favorite hero, and quite another to wake up with multiple heroes in his house. Kigo was expected. Aizawa, Yagi, and Recovery Girl were not. There was also an animal in a suit. Izuku fought off the ambient emotions around him. They were strong today, despite the subdued atmosphere. Thankfully, there didn't seem to be many ghosts nearby. Izuku didn't know if he could handle any more emotions at the moment. He rubbed his eyes. Ah, it appears our young friend is awake, said the animal. Izuku squinted at the stoat. Why did he look so familiar? Then the dots connected. Nizu. Oh, Izuku. Mom threw her arms around him, tears streaming down her face. Thank goodness. What's going on? He asked groggily. The last thing I remember is, no, never mind. That had to be a dream. Wasn't a dream, Zuku, said Kigo. Izuku took the water the man offered. The number one idiot over there actually offered you his powers. Izuku choked on his water, then collapsed onto the couch when everyone's concern spiked. He couldn't understand it. Being aware of everyone's emotions was so hard, but why wasn't it hard at school? He hadn't been having trouble there. And what about the ghosts? They had touched the slime villain, without Izuku ever having to do anything. But they couldn't make contact when they tried batting Kachin upside the head. Or when the other kids were kicking him. Maybe it had to do with the severity of the situation. The adults in the room stilled, all their eyes on the boy. Why, exactly, were all their eyes on him? You do realize you're talking out loud, Zuku. Oh. That would do it. An awkward chuckle came from Yagi. You, seem to live quite a life, young man. Understatement of the century, Kigo laughed. Aizawa glared at them all, then leveled a look at the boy. Izuku pet his head to the side. There was something in the pro's gaze. Mom had the same look. Izuku, Mom said, if you want to, you can accept All Might's power. But there will be conditions. Ooh, what conditions? Oboro asked. He had popped his head through the ceiling at some point. Izuku wasn't quite sure when. If you accept, young man, you would have to endure rigorous training, overseen by Aizawa for some reason, Yagi muttered under his breath. The other man gave him an unimpressed look. You're not a teacher, Yagi. I have experience in that area, and, besides that, I was training him first. He is my student, that you might teach as well. Well, I understand the need for supervision, but you're going to be my co-worker. Shouldn't Nizu or perhaps Gran Torino be supervising? And on that note, I'm a grown man. I'm sure I can figure out how to teach one kid. Gentlemen, Nizu interrupted. I believe we have already had this conversation. Aizawa will be supervising until the school year starts. Right. Sorry. Yagi at least had the decency to look sheepish. The next condition will be that you attend UA. Not to put a wrench in things, but, I'm diagnosed as quirkless. I've heard about the entrance exam, and I doubt I could pass without one. And if I suddenly develop a quirk, that ruins my cover. The commission will be, well, said. To be honest, Zuku, said Kigo, the commission doesn't really need you. They want your potential, and they like having all of the control. Well, yeah, but there's still the Hero Commission. How many times have they asked you to spy on heroes? The question wasn't meant as a rhetorical one, but that's how it played out. Izuku sighed. Okay, so I suddenly develop a quirk or two. What would I even call it? We should burn that bridge when we get to it, Oboro chimed in. I will not be burning any bridges, thank you Oboro. That is never not going to sound insane, Aizawa sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. Yes, well, Yagi continued his explanation, if you accept, and pass the entrance exam, then you will be put in Eraserhead's homeroom. You will be ceasing all activities for the Hero Commission as well, at least until you are graduated. After that, you may do as you wish. Wait, but that means I won't get to work with Kigo anymore. Ah, don't sweat it, Zuku. Kigo ruffled the boy's hair. We'll work together plenty after your graduation. I'm going to work on separating myself from them anyway. Honestly, the only reason I'm staying right now is to keep an eye on you. Besides, I'm living here. It's not like you're never going to see me again. I suppose that wouldn't be too bad. Izuku devolved into another mutter fest. At the end of it, he gave one big nod, and said, all right. I'll do it. There were mixed reactions, and all of them were strong. Izuku glared at his, what should he even call this group? Mom, Kigo, Ghost, and assorted teachers. Whatever they were to him, he glared. Could you all stop feeling so loudly? I'm getting a headache. There were chuckles all around, followed closely by promises to leave him alone. Once all but Mom were gone, Izuku smiled to himself. The life set before him felt like it was going to be great. His smile disappeared. The last time he thought that had been right before starting Aizawa's training regimen. This was going to SCK, wasn't it? Chapter 10, Training. It did SCK, at first. The red spot on his neck got worse before it got better, but at least it went away eventually. Cleaning the beach was kind of cool. And as it turned out, Yagi's training program actually got Aizawa's stamp of approval, after a few very minor changes to the diet. Izuku was glad for that, as the diet had not originally included any cheat days or good snacks, or, rather, sugary snacks, which the boy didn't particularly want to give up. Plus, the time passed so quickly. Before he realized it, there were only a few days until the entrance exam and the beach was nearly clear. One thing struck Izuku as odd during that time. All Might's ghosts seemed to avoid him. After the first encounter, they they didn't disappear, but they hovered a ways away. They didn't come near. Sometimes they chatted with each other, but mostly they just stood watching. It unnerved him a bit. On the bright side, Oboro kept things lively. He constantly cheered Izuku on, or attempted to play pranks on him. Even better, Oboro sometimes tried playing pranks on Aizawa. Today, Izuku had charged his hand so the ghost could attempt to carry a bucket of sea water over. If asked, Izuku would claim he knew nothing. However, it was a bit hard to ignore the shaking bucket being carried over the sand. Shirakumo, I can hear the water from here. Don't. Aizawa hadn't even looked in the ghost's direction. Izuku snickered. And don't think you're off the hook, problem child. He wouldn't be able to carry a bucket without you. The bucket fell, and the boy pouted. Funnily enough, so did All Might. Couldn't you let them have their fun just once? The man asked. Izuku perked up at the question. Aizawa smirked, and the boy's expression returned to a pout. No. You're no fun, Eraserhead. I would never guess that you taught children. If you had ever taught teenagers before, you'd know that I am outwardly what all the other teachers are inwardly. Aha. Yagi shook his head and wandered off, pausing briefly to whisper to Izuku, "Tell your ghost friend to bring me the bucket." Izuku wasn't sure it was a good idea, but looked to Oboro, who grinned and saluted. The boy shrugged. 3 microwaves, a television, and a tub later, Aizawa motioned for Izuku to take a break. He collapsed onto clean sand, water bottle in hand. The only warning he had for what came next was a slight creaking from behind him. He looked up to see Yagi distracting Aizawa with conversation while Oboro toted his bucket over the last pile of trash. A splash, followed by the most exasperated sigh Izuku had ever heard, had Yagi and Izuku in tears. If his abs weren't already hurting, the laughter would have made them hurt. Aizawa, for his part, merely shook his head. "You two are like toddlers, and I'm done babysitting for today. Make sure he eats before you take him home, Yagi." Oboro followed Aizawa, throwing a wave over his shoulder. The remaining 2 sat in companionable silence while the sun set. After a while, though, Izuku could tell Yagi wanted to ask something. Probably about the ghosts. "She hasn't said anything else. The ghosts following you keep their distance." I wasn't going to pry. Guilt came off the man in waves. Either he was lying, or he had been considering the idea. "You can pry all you want," Izuku offered. "You let me in on your secret quirk, and now I'm set to inherit it." "Still," said Yagi, "I don't want you to feel like you have to tell me everything. As much as I might want to know." Izuku shrugged and dropped the subject. Aside from the new heightened awareness of people's emotions, he knew his quirk fairly well, and it wasn't really going to be a secret anymore. It felt a little weird talking about it still, but it wasn't hard. Eventually, Yagi did ask more questions, after they had eaten dinner. It was nice. Izuku hoped he could have more times like this once school started. Midoriya Izuku was going to kill Aizawa Shoyuta. A heads up about the 0-pointer would have been appreciated. Heck, even a vague, "beware of giants" or something would have sufficed. But no. The man had left him completely in the dark. Izuku had barely been able to fight a few 1-pointers, and the 0-pointer was headed right for him. Several kids were already pinned by rubble or injured by it. To make matters worse, it was determined that Izuku needed a little more muscle mass before receiving one for all, which meant he was fighting without a super-powered quirk. On the bright side, there were several ghosts around him. All Might's ghosts had finally approached him, even if it was just to offer their help in the exam. Nana looked like she wanted to say more, but the white-haired ghost had stopped her. Hana and Agent Namura were there, as well as Liza and a few others. Some were students' family members, the rest were ghostly informants from Izuku's time with the commission. He was quite touched that they all wanted to help. Several calls for help came from around the compound. Izuku charged as many hands as he could, and the ghosts worked to free as many as they could. After several rounds of this, Izuku fell to his knees, sweat running down his face. "Maybe Aizawa was right about me not being ready for one for all," he muttered to himself. "I can't even handle ghost talk anymore." A shrill scream pierced the air. There, in the path of the 0-pointer and trapped by rubble, was a girl. Izuku recognized from when he had tripped on the steps of UA. Izuku ran forward, but there was no way he would make it in time, and he didn't even have enough strength left to do anything if he did. There were only 2 ghosts with him at the moment, Nana and Agent Namura. They ran beside him. The 0-pointer brought one big hand down. The ground shuddered, and Izuku fell. No. No, no, no. That thing was going to crush that nice girl. Izuku reached a hand toward her, something tugging in his chest. "Save her." His voice echoed in his own head, and suddenly Nana and Namura were beside the girl. Nana lifted the cement, and Namura pulled her out of the way. The last thing Izuku saw before collapsing in a heap was the girl and both ghosts sprinting toward him.